Chapter 594. Walking out of the elevator, the middle-aged woman took out her keys and opened the door. They saw a handsome young man making a phone call inside. When he saw the two people at the door, he frowned and walked to the balcony as if he would be disturbed. Yihua felt that this young man was truly formidable, to actually dare to show me such an expression. Even though my mother has returned, she still has a look of impatience on her face. You don't have to change your shoes. The middle-aged woman squeezed out a smile, feeling helpless. Yihua did not stand on ceremony and directly walked into the house with the auntie. Yihua took a look around the house. The decorations are not bad. Then Yihua carefully sized up the young man on the balcony. Interesting, he is actually a dual-element mage. No wonder he is a manager in the Peace Association. The auntie poured a cup of tea for Yihua, and Yihua took over the cup of tea. Yihua assumed the posture of a big boss and sat down, while the auntie sat upright on the sofa. The auntie's attitude made Yihua feel that this isn't like a mother at all, this is more like a nanny. What is your son's name? Yihua asked faintly. Wu Li, Powerless? That was an interesting name. After Wu Li finished the call outside, he walked into the house and shouted, I've told you many times to stop setting up the stall. Why won't you listen? You're embarrassing me. As a member of the Peace Association, he was very particular about his reputation. If others knew that his mother was setting up a stall on the street in the morning, he would lose all his face. Yihua could be said to have experienced it for himself. If this was my son, I would have given him a slap right now. This kid is simply a scoundrel. He actually thought that his mother was embarrassing him. What an ingrate. There was even a moon and a star imprinted on his chest. No wonder it was so inflated. Mom, I'm used to having lunch at home. Mom will cook for you. The aunt's eyes were full of desire, hoping that her son would stay for dinner. Wu Li had an impatient look on his face as he said in a low voice, I'm not eating. And who is this? Why did you bring it home? Wu Li sized up Yihua for a bit. Yihua only looks good, there is no mark on his chest at all, he is just a rookie. The auntie didn't know how to introduce Yihua. Yihua said indifferently, who I am is not important. What is important is that your attitude is making me very unhappy. Wu Li laughed and said disdainfully, who are you? Do you know who you're talking to? See that? Moon class elites had 1 star. Watch your attitude. I didn't expect that there would be someone who dared to act cool in front of me, and I, the Supreme Overlord, didn't intend to kill him. After all, I came here today to help Auntie, not to kill her son. I feel like I, the Supreme Overlord, am here to suffer. But this was the only time. It could be considered as repaying this auntie. After all, she had eaten so many pancakes for so many years. It seemed that she still owed money and didn't even remember it. It could be considered as repaying her debt. Moon-class elites are indeed powerful. Yihua said faintly. Hehe, there's something you haven't seen before. I really don't know where you get the courage to teach me a lesson. Wu Li snorted. What an arrogant man. It must have been his mother who called him over. What was this old man thinking? He actually called an outsider to teach his son a lesson. He must be crazy. Yihua became curious. Is there anything that I have not seen before? Hehe, how could you frogs at the bottom of a well have seen it before? Why don't I broaden your horizons today? Wu Li wanted to teach this man a lesson, but it seemed inappropriate to do it in front of his mother, so he chose to do it outside. Yihua stood up and said in a low voice, all right, I would like to broaden my horizons. All right, just you wait. After finished speaking, Wu Li walked into the room and took out a few sets of clothes. Seeing her son's actions, the auntie sat down on the sofa powerlessly. There was no way for her to make her son stay. Yihua patted onto the auntie's shoulder. Don't worry, I guarantee that your son will come back tonight. Thank you so much. But you also have to pay attention to your safety. The auntie's gratitude was filled with concern. That son of mine has changed, it is possible for him to do something out of line. Yihua nodded his head and walked out of the house. Coming downstairs, Wu Li opened the garage door. Porsche 911, I reckon that you have never seen it before. Get on the car. Yihua didn't say anything and sat on the front passenger seat. Meanwhile, Wu Li started the sports car and drove out of the neighborhood. Yihua, who was on the front passenger seat, took out a cigarette and lit it up. Don't dirty my car. Wu Li shouted coldly. Yihua spat out a mouthful of smoke and said eerily, if you weren't the auntie's son, you would have been dead by now. Hehe, kill for me to see. Do you really think that no one would be able to see through your identity of having dual attributes? Yihua flicked away the cigarette ash and said, Zizizi. The friction between the tires and the ground let out an ear-piercing sound. Luckily they weren't in the city, if not, they would definitely be rear-ended. Who are you? How did you know my secret? Wu Li turned his head and looked towards Yi Hua and questioned. He even had the intention to kill Yi Hua. Actually, I am just a person who often buys biscuits from your mother. I decided to lend her a hand. Yi Hua said lightly. What do you want to help her for? To teach you, this unfilial son, how to be a proper person. This sentence of Yi Hua's had quite a profound meaning. I haven't even learned how to be a proper person yet, and I am already starting to teach others. After hearing that, Wu Li laughed out wildly, as if he had heard the funniest thing in the world. Do you know what era it is now? This is an era where people take action. Do you think that you can just talk about it? Who told you that I am going to talk about it? Yi Hua looked towards Wu Li. When the latter met with Yi Hua's gaze, his eyes immediately shrunk. What kind of gaze is this? This is too scary. Just what kind of person is this? Not being able to figure out Yi Hua's strength, Wu Li planned to go to the company first. There are a lot of people there, and this man will not act recklessly. 30 minutes later, Yi Hua arrived at the Peace Association's company. After getting off the car, Yi Hua pinched his head. This sports car is not comfortable at all. The Audi A8 at home is much better. Let's go, I will bring you to experience it. Wu Li's tone changed a bit. Perhaps he was afraid of Yi Hua. The two of them walked up the stairs, and Yi Hua discovered that there were a lot of people here. Most of the people here were stars, and there were very few moons that could be seen. Seems like all of them are newbies. My decision is still correct. If there are no newbies, how am I going to play in the future? After all, it would be a few years before he left. Some of the martial artists of the stars bowed to Wu Li, which made Wu Li very happy. See, this is the treatment of a moon-class elite, Wu Li said proudly. Do you believe that I will slap you out of here? Yi Hua said eerily. Does Yi Hua really think that he is very formidable? That's because you haven't seen anything stronger. For some reason, Wu Li felt a little afraid of this man from the moment they first met. What was going on? This was Yi Hua's first time coming to the Peace Association, and he was also preparing to size up the internal situation of the enemy. Chapter 595. Wu Li brought Yi Hua to the second floor, and a five-star martial artist could be seen shouting out a declaration. Defeat Voidless Realm. Defeat Voidless Realm. Defeat Voidless Realm. Hearing such a declaration, Yi Hua went into a daze for a moment. What does this Peace Association mean? Are they going to attack Voidless Realm? Are you puzzled? Wu Li chuckled. Yi Hua asked faintly, why does your Peace Association want to defeat Voidless Realm? Because Voidless Realm killed over 1,000 people last night, so we want to suppress them. Wu Li said confidently, completely oblivious to the fact that Wu Li was about to leave and never return. Do you know about Voidless Realm? Yi Hua might not want to care about other people, but this auntie's son, if he can save him, then he will lose his life sooner or later. However, how did they know about what happened last night? Voidless Realm, wasn't it the boss of the North in the past? But now, the times have changed. Those who are unable to keep up with the times will eventually be eliminated. Wu Li said lightly, and after finished speaking he even tidied up his hair. Yi Hua sighed a bit. The ones who are unable to keep up with the times are you all. I gave you all a choice, but in the end, you all still have to step on a path of no return. Hope and despair, you all chose despair without any hesitation, making me feel bitter and hateful. Can't I just enjoy life? Wu Li, if it was someone else I wouldn't persuade them, but you are that auntie's son, so I will give you a word of advice. Don't get involved, otherwise your mother will die alone. Who are you trying to scare? That Voidless Realm is not even worth mentioning. Wu Li snorted coldly. The people above said that Voidless Realm is just a paper tiger, and there is no need to be afraid of them. Yi Hua wouldn't persuade the auntie a second time. Whether or not the auntie can comprehend the auntie's words would depend on himself. The two walked into a spacious classroom and Wu Li said in a low voice, let me bring you to meet a strong individual. This is Xan Ba, the most outstanding youngster in our Peace Association, and he even became the champion of the North-South Martial Arts competition last year. A competition of strength. Yi Hua looked towards Xan Ba, who was on the stage. How could I not recognize him? That youngster is that youngster, and I even think highly of him. Yi Hua is also nurturing Xan Ba to be his future opponent. However, compared to the past, the current Xan Ba is doing quite well. Not bad. He didn't disappoint me. Wasn't there a young man named Qi Shuwen? I wonder how you are doing right now. Don't disappoint me. How is it? Do you understand? Wu Li, who was at the side, chuckled. Even he didn't understand, so how could a rookie like him understand? Xan Ba, who was standing on the podium and teaching, seemed to be in his element. He had a gentle smile on his face, which made everyone feel that he was very amiable. On Xanba's chest there were 2 moons and 2 stars. Among young people this was already very impressive. Xanba glanced at the crowd and continued his lecture. But Xanba frowned. He seemed to have seen a familiar figure when he scanned the area. Xanba looked towards the door again, and his gaze suddenly changed. That figure was simply too familiar. Back then, during the North-South Martial Arts Tournament, that man had sat on the high platform, his aura so overwhelming that it was as if he controlled the lives of all the people in the world. Even the Empress was only a foil, and there was also that god. Why would he appear here? What was he doing here? Right now, Xanba was completely not in the mood to teach anymore, and the people who were sitting on the podium were also puzzled. Yihua naturally knew why Xanba was like this, and he didn't mind because this was a normal reaction. How is it you have broadened your horizons, right? Wu Li said proudly. Yihua said lightly, what do you think of your own mother? What does that have to do with you? Wu Li was immediately in a bad mood. You're not my father. Yihua looked at Wu Li. This doom's eyes scared Wu Li quite a bit, to the point that he felt as if his heart was going to stop beating. Immediately, Wu Li lowered his head and remained silent. I have been eating at your mother's stall for close to 6 years. No matter how heavy the rain is, your mother would still come out to set up her stall. You should know better than me who she is doing this for. Brat, you should be glad that you have a mother like this. Speaking up to here, Yihua paused for a bit. Just who are my parents? What kind of parents can a skeleton possibly have? Yihua felt that he was thinking too much. However, Yihua didn't think too much about it. What did a skeleton turn into? Could it be that it isn't a human? Hearing Yihua's words, Wu Li lowered his head and didn't dare to refute. This man's gaze is too ferocious, too terrifying. As for the reasoning behind Yihua's words, Wu Li didn't listen to it. Because he was frightened, he didn't hear what Yihua said at all. Xanba, who was on the podium, didn't have the mood to teach anymore and ended the class early. Wu Li seemed to be planning to curry favor with Xanba, and thus he stood outside and waited for Xanba to come out. However, Xanba didn't dare to come out, because the person who was standing outside was Voidless Realm's Empress Man. And in the Peace Association, everyone was currently shouting the slogan of, Defeat Voidless Realm. If this man were to get angry, wouldn't everyone have to die? After thinking for a while, Xanba felt that he should go out and take a look. I can't just stand there foolishly, right? Just after walking out of the classroom, Xanba saw that man standing at the side and waiting for him. Xanba felt that his heart was about to stop. Sensing that Xanba wasn't feeling well, Old Feng shouted out, Xanba, calm down, there is nothing to be afraid of. Master, this man? Xanba, you can be at ease, Master is here. Old Feng shouted out gravely. Hearing what his master said, Xanba felt a lot more at ease. His master is a powerful deity, he shouldn't be afraid of me, but I am afraid to death. Department Head Xanba. Wu Li shouted out respectfully. Yihua stood at the side and stared at Xanba. Yihua could even see that old man's soul. Right now, Old Feng's mind was trembling violently. I feel that this man saw me. How is this possible? How is it possible for him to see me? If he really saw me, that would be bad. This is the first time that Xanba saw Yihua at such a close distance. I feel that Yihua is very ghostly, just like a mystery. Xanba, we meet again. Yihua said faintly. Xanba swallowed his saliva. Not knowing how to address Yihua, Xanba could only shout out, Lord Yi. Wu Li, who was at the side, was dumbfounded. Department Head Xanba actually addressed him as Lord Yi. The hell? Just what kind of background does this person have? How did my mother get to know him? Why didn't she tell me earlier that there is such a resource? Tonight, I must definitely go back and ask about it clearly. Xanba, come over and have a chat with me. Yihua said faintly. Xanba didn't dare to refuse and said respectfully, all right. Yihua turned his head around and looked towards Wu Li. Tonight, go back and accompany your mother. Remember what I said, whether you live or die is up to you. To be able to make Yihua speak out to persuade Wu Li, it was most likely only this Wu Li. And Yihua was also giving face to the ant, if not, he wouldn't be bothered to care about Wu Li. Chapter 596. Xanba obediently followed behind Yihua. This made a lot of people feel strange. Why would Xanba reveal such an expression? The two of them walked into the emergency exit at the side, then Yihua took out a cigarette and lit it up, while Xanba stood at the side while trembling with fear. I don't know why Yihua called me over. Could it be that Yihua is planning to kill me? Actually, I think very highly of you, and I don't wish for you to die so quickly. Yi Hua breathed out a mouthful of smoke and said faintly. Xinba gulped. Lord Yi, have you misunderstood something? Xinba, you were able to win the championship of the North-South martial arts competition, which shows that you have worked very hard. If your hard work is lost under the leadership of a group of idiots, then I will be disappointed. You should understand what I mean. Hearing what Voidless Realm said, how could Xinba not understand what Voidless Realm meant? Right now, the Peace Association is wantonly exaggerating their hatred towards Voidless Realm, and they are just waiting to be annihilated in one fell swoop. Initially, Yi Hua thought to himself that there were only so many people in Voidless Realm, and on his side, there were over 100,000 people. Thus, there was still hope for them to win against Voidless Realm. However, after hearing Yi Hua's words, Xinba started to doubt Yi Hua. Can I really win against Yi Hua? Xinba lowered his head and did not dare to boast. In front of Yi Hua, he was just a primary school student. The Peace Association and the Righteous Alliance are just a joke. You should have your own sky. Who knows, I might become your opponent in the future. You? Xinba was dumbfounded. Old Feng was also shocked. Could it be that he really saw it? Xinba quickly agreed to it. Let's make a decision in the future. Elder Feng didn't even think too much about it. When Xinba became stronger in the future, there would still be a chance for him to fight. Of course, Xinba listened to his master. Lord Yi, I understand. You can be considered to be a sensible person. Develop well, I look forward to your growth. After finished speaking, Yi Hua disappeared from the spot. Xinba felt his legs go soft. This man was too terrifying. Just by standing there, he was scared into a limp shrimp. Xinba, hurry up and leave this peace association. Don't get involved in any more relationships. Crazy old man hurriedly said. Xinba naturally obeyed Yi Hua's words. In actuality, Xinba was thinking the same thing in his heart. If there was still a trace of hope in the past after seeing Yi Hua, he felt that there was basically no hope left. Master, should we tell the others? Xinba asked out of kindness. It's none of your business. Leave first. Yes. Xinba didn't even want to resign and directly chose to leave. Wu Li, who was outside, directly drove home. He wanted to ask his mother what was going on. Yi Hua's promise was fulfilled, and Wu Li had indeed returned home to accompany his aunt. However, Wu Li still did not give up his current position and chose to despair. After returning to Leisure Bar, Yi Hua saw that Blood Demon was wiping the table. Why does he like to clean up so much? His honor. Seeing that his honor had returned, the Blood Demon hurriedly shouted out. Make a few side dishes. Yes. Yi Hua walked forward and opened the door of Qing Yutong's room. Yi Zizi was still playing her game. Your honor, is it a mission? Yi Zizi tossed Zhu Tian, who was in her embrace, onto the bed. The unconscious Zhu Tian was truly miserable. Yi Zizi had been tossing him around all day. Yi Hua lied on his sister-in-law's bed and said faintly, it should be soon. Wu, thank you, your honor. Yi Zizi pounced into Yi Hua's embrace and acted coquettishly. Yi Zizi had done this before in the past, and it could be considered as a normal interaction. Patting onto Yi Zizi's head, Yi Hua said faintly, do you miss your previous life? It's alright, each has its own benefits. Yi Zizi felt that playing games every day wasn't bad either. Occasionally, I can go out and kill some people to loosen my muscles and bones. When we go back, we have to maintain our current low-profile attitude. Yi Hua laughed lightly. In the past, being high-profile was really boring. Only being low-profile is the way of the king. What? Aren't we just going to kill all of them? Yi Hua knocked onto Yi Zizi's forehead petulantly. I owe your honor, I am so foolish. It was all because of you knocking onto my forehead. Yi Zizi pouted her small mouth and rubbed onto her forehead. If you dare to spoil my plan, I will smack your butt. Zizi will not spoil your honor's plan. Then, can you tell me about your honor's plan? I promise to keep it a secret. Yi Hua glared at Yi Zizi. With your big mouth, I reckon that you will tell Lai Gu in no time. Ah, how is that possible? My mouth is rather small. Your honor, take a look. Yi Zizi opened her mouth wide and her tongue was moving back and forth. Yi Zizi's mouth is truly stimulating, and with the two ponytails at the back of her head, it really makes one want to commit a crime. Patting onto Yi Zizi's butt, Yi Hua said faintly, accompany me to eat. All right. Yi Zizi bounced and jumped as she wore her shoes, then carried Zhu Tian, who was currently unconscious, and walked downstairs. Meanwhile, on the other side, the boss of Justice and Order Alliance, Bai Cixin, was currently having lunch with the boss of Peace Association, Jiu Yi. The top-notch steak was flown over today, and the steak was still fresh. Jiu Yi, have you thought it through? Bai Cixin cut off a piece of steak, then slowly stuffed it into her small mouth and chewed. Jiu Yi laughed. Alliance Master Bai, this voidless realm is not a place that we can afford to offend, aren't we being too rash by doing this? Then what does Jiu Yi want to do? Right now Bai Cixin was wholeheartedly thinking of bringing down voidless realm. Jiu Yi placed down the knife and fork in his hand and said faintly, Alliance Master Bai should understand this first, right? Lord Jiu means to negotiate first? Bai Cixin's eyebrows wrinkled. Although it is a bit strange, I feel that this idea is pretty good. Lord Jiu nodded his head. Actually, he was still very fearful in his heart. To be more accurate, he was fearful of the owner of the leisure bar, who knew how formidable he was. Although his side had the advantage in numbers, he was still not at ease. That's right, this voidless realm has killed so many of our people they have to pay the price, right? What Jiu Yi said is right, a life for a life. No matter how powerful this voidless realm is, they won't be able to withstand the attacks from all of the powers, right? Bai Cixin had an idea in his mind. I'm going to join hands with everyone to get rid of voidless realm. However, there are still a lot of things that I have to do in between. Jiu Yi nodded his head. That is only natural. In the end, the only one who is powerful in voidless realm is the Empress. However, no matter how powerful the Empress is, we still have experts on our side. Bai Cixin cut a small piece of meat again. She did have a lot of masters on her side, especially Atlas, who was still a mystery. Maybe he could even kill the Empress. The Empress died. Then she would be the only Empress in this world. Jiu Yi, I wish us a happy cooperation. Bai Cixin stretched out her pure white hand. With a smile on his face, Jiu Yi held onto Bai Cixin's delicate hand. I feel that my hand feels pretty good, smooth and tender. Chapter 597. After eating lunch with Yi Zizi, Yi Hua returned to Voidless Realm. Right now, Yi Hua felt that he was a bit bored, and it seemed that he should do something to do. Ever since last year's North-South martial arts competition, there hadn't been any big events. It was estimated that Xian Ba and Qi Shuwen would not be able to grow up. Right now, they could only rely on the Righteous Alliance and the Peace Association. Right after arriving at Voidless Realm, Yi Hua heard the sound of a flute. When he arrived at the outer courtyard of the bedchamber, he saw his son holding a flute that was about the same length as him, and he was playing it with great vigor. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji sat at the side and watched, and traces of tenderness could be seen on Donghuang Li's face. Donghuang Li was also sitting on her mother's lap and watching her little brother play the flute. From time to time they would even clap their hands and cheer. The three of them really knew how to show their support. Look at the smile on their son's face. The more he boasted, the more energetic he became. Yi Yin really liked to play the flute now. Especially after hearing his mother and sister's praise, it was even more incredible. He felt like he was playing a divine tune. But Yi Yin, who lacked musical talent, played it like ghosts wailing and wolves howling. Yi Hua and Qingya didn't seem to have any musical talent, and they didn't even sing together before. Seeing that his father had appeared, Yi Yin stopped. His little face collapsed and he stood upright without moving. Donghuang Li also jumped down from her mother's bosom, then lowered her head and admitted her mistake. All right, Daddy isn't angry anymore, Yi Hua said faintly. Donghuang Baiji sat on the stone stool at the side and poured a cup of tea for her husband. Hearing that their father wasn't angry anymore, a smile appeared on the two little fellows' faces, and they pounced into Yi Hua's embrace and acted coquettishly. Yi Hua patted his children. Go and play. Dad, Yener is learning how to play the flute. It sounds really nice. And little brother, your boasting is very nice. Big sister Donghuang Li was very nice to Yi Hua. Towards his son's interest in this aspect, Yi Hua didn't stop him, and not bad. Right now, after obtaining his father's approval, Yi Yin became even more excited. After taking a few steps back, Yi Yin started to play his solo. Alright, although I agree with my son's interest, my son's skill level still needs to be improved. However, looking at the flute in my son's hand, it really is lacking something. Yin, this is for you. Yi Hua instantly took out a black jade flute. This flute's name was Dragon Abyss, and it was a primordial divine artifact that was used for musical attacks. Yi Hua had already forgotten how it came to be, but it was still barely enough for his son to practice with. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji were already used to their husband casually taking out terrifying things, therefore they didn't say anything. Yi Hua would also place a layer of seal on the Dragon Abyss to prevent Yi Yin from destroying it. Yi Yin immediately ran over and took Long Yuan from his father's hands. His big eyes were filled with joy. Thank you, Dad. Yi Hua nodded his head. One must be polite, and this was something that must be learned from young. Ali was brought up well by Baiji, and Ali was very polite. My son is even more so. Even if he were to kill someone, he would have to be polite. It had to be said that the sound produced by the dragon abyss was very moving. If it wasn't for Yi Yan's lack of skill, he would definitely be intoxicated. Could even blow people to death. Baiji, I just heard that the Peace Association wants to make a move on us. Yi Hua drank a mouthful of tea and said faintly. Yi Hua, you already know about it? Dong Huang. Baiji was still planning to not tell her husband about it and deal with it herself. Yi Hua nodded his head. Yesterday's matter seemed to have been discovered by someone, and they are using this matter to make a fuss. Just that, what made Yi Hua puzzled was, just who in the world was the one who discovered this? There doesn't seem to be anyone who survived. This is truly very strange. I really hope they don't do anything wrong. Dong Huang. Baiji let out a light sigh. Why must you go against my voidless realm? Aren't you just courting death? Yi Hua took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up. Some things are truly unstoppable. Qingya laughed lightly. That's right, some things are indeed unstoppable. Looking at Qingya's expression, Yi Hua felt that something was amiss and asked curiously, what is unstoppable? Dong Huang. Baiji smiled. Yi Hua, Qingya is having her second child. Ah. Yi Hua was shocked. I got pregnant again so quickly. Yan is also going to have a little brother. Yi Yan put down the dragon abyss in his hand and smiled. Dong Huang Li was the same as well. I'm going to have 3 little brothers. Ali is the big sister. It felt like I was the last one to know about it. They all knew about it. Yi Hua suddenly thought of a problem. My 2 wives are pregnant again, and according to their habits, they definitely won't let me touch them. Originally, I already didn't touch Baiji and there was still Qingya. But now the 2 of them can forget about it. Why do I have to find things to do recently that are like shooting myself in the foot? Looking at the gloomy expression on their husband's face, Qingya and Dong Huang. Baiji laughed lightly. Their husband is definitely feeling gloomy right now. However, Yi Hua was still very happy that Qingya was able to get pregnant again. However, I have to take some safety measures in the future, if not, this will be too painful. After giving birth to their second child, they won't be able to give birth for the next 10 years. Yi Hua's dream of having a threesome still hasn't been fulfilled yet. Yi Hua lightly held onto Qingya's hand and Dong Huang. Baiji's hand. Yi Hua was very grateful to them for continuing his bloodline. It has been hard on the 2 of you. Yi Hua said earnestly. Qingya and Dong Huang. Baiji smiled sweetly. Everything was understood without words. The 2 little fellows stood beside their parents, and while looking at their father and mother, a smile appeared on their faces. What a beautiful and warm scene this was. A family of 5, and there were still 2 little fellows in their mother's tummy. Yi Hua changed from a lonely life to his current life. He was simply the biggest winner in life. With a wife that he deeply loved, and an adorable child, there was nothing more in life than this. Did I come at the wrong time? Qing Yutong's voice rang out from the side. Yi Hua turned his head and looked towards his sister-in-law. These 2 wives of mine are no longer able to serve me, so whether or not this sister-in-law should serve me instead is a problem. Your big sister is pregnant. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth arced up into a smile. Qing Yutong went into a daze for a moment, then immediately rushed to the front of her big sister. So fast? With a gentle smile on her face, Qingya nodded her head. Damn, brother-in-law, you really hit the mark every time. You are amazing. Qing Yutong couldn't help but praise. As expected of a supreme overlord, his ability to give birth is also top-notch. Qingya patted onto the back of her little sister's hand. You have to think about yourself too. Big sister, why are you here again? Qing Yutong was helpless. My big sister urges me every day, making it seem as if I can't get married. Yi Hua sat on the chair and did not speak. In this world there are too few men that are worthy of Qing Yutong. Meanwhile, Qing Yutong turned around and blinked her beautiful eyes mischievously at her brother-in-law, seemingly saying, brother-in-law, if you are not going to make a move, I am going to get married. Chapter 598. With the addition of Qing Yutong, anger became a lot more active. She is already so old, and yet she is still able to play with 2 children. This made Qingya very helpless. In the future, when my little sister has a child, I reckon that she will still be like this. This is truly making me worry. In the following week, Yi Hua was indeed having a great time. Because his 2 wives seemed to be embarrassed, the 3 of them were currently sleeping together. Yi Hua hugged one on his left and one on his right, and he finally got to enjoy it. Although he didn't do anything bad, he still took a step forward. Would the future be far? But here came the problem. Every morning, before the sun had even risen, she could hear her son practicing the flute. That ghostly wail and wolf-like howl really made her unable to sleep. In the beginning, Yi Hua thought that his son's interest was just too high, and that he would be fine after a few days. However, Yi Hua had underestimated his son's interest. The torture had only just begun. In an instant, everyone in Voidless Realm was in a bad mood. All of them thought that the Little Highness's popularity was only for a short period of time. From the gratified smile in the beginning, to the despair in the end, the change in the middle was truly comical. Just like what Yi Yan said, he could blow people to death with his flute. On this day, Yi Hua, who was in his dreams, was currently hugging onto his two fragrant wives as he slept. Suddenly, the sound of his son playing the flute rang out beside his ears. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji, who were at the side, also instantly opened their eyes. This Yan Qingya was truly helpless. My son is so passionate about blowing the flute, and yet, if I go over and tell him to stop blowing the flute, wouldn't that be too much of a blow to my son? Yi Hua let out a deep sigh. Tomorrow, let's go back to Leisure Bar and sleep, I can't take it anymore. During the past few days, there were also people who reported about Yenner's matter, and the people in Voidless Realm are about to be unable to take it anymore. Donghuang Baiji laughed bitterly. Yen, this fellow is too good at stirring up trouble. Just by playing the flute, he is able to cause such a huge ruckus. In order to not dampen his son's interest in learning, Yi Hua said lightly, in the future, let's set a time for Yen to practice. It's not a good thing to continue like this. Qingya felt that what Yi Hua said was true as well. The strange flute sound continued ringing in their ears, and the three parents were already on the verge of despair, let alone the other people from Voidless Realm, who were currently living in an abyss of suffering. Not long after, the three of them got up. Then they found Yi Yan, who was practicing, and told the little guy to practice at the set time and not start early in the morning. After hearing this, Yi Yan felt that it was okay and compromised. It seemed like he had boasted too much, so he had placed it when everyone was awake. However, during lunchtime, a guard suddenly rushed in to report something. Your Majesty, I've just received news that the Justice and Order Alliance and the Peace Association are requesting to negotiate. Yi Hua put down the chopsticks in his hand. Negotiate? That's right, it's going to be held the day after tomorrow. In fact, they even said that if Voidless Realm doesn't come, they will attack Voidless Realm together with Voidless Realm. Yi Hua laughed lightly. This is a bit interesting. Donghuang Baiji waved her hand, and the guard bowed his body and left. Yi Hua picked up his chopsticks and picked up some food, then said faintly, leave this matter to me. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji didn't say anything either. Yi Yan stood on the stool and said in a childish voice, Daddy, Yen can also help you do things. When Yen grows up, there will be a lot of things waiting for Yen to do. Yi Hua said lightly. As the son of the original Supreme Overlord, there would only be a lot of things waiting for Yen in the future. Ali is also able to help father. Dong Huangli naturally wanted to help her father share his burdens. Yi Hua said indifferently, right now your mission is to properly grow up, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Dong Huangli and Yi Yan nodded their heads. Dong Huangli and Yi Yan really hope that they can grow up quickly so that they can help their father. After dinner, Yi Hua returned to Leisure Bar and looked for Yi Zizi. Didn't she want a quest? In that case, Yi Zizi would be in charge of the negotiation. Yi Zizi was very happy. Finally, I am able to do something. Furthermore, His Honor also said that I can talk to them however I want. The prerequisite is to anger them, but of course I can't kill all of them. Yi Zizi, of course, understood that it was finally her turn to appear. She was really excited. 3 days later, Haigang City, 3 days passed quickly. The international building in Seaport City was the territory of the Righteous Alliance. The negotiation conference this time would also be held here. Among them were two big shots, Lord Jiao and Bai Cixin. Only Feng Di appeared in the Righteous Alliance. Of course, Wang Debao was there as well. Since his wife had come to negotiate, he had to cheer her on as her husband. The entire hall was filled with the upper echelons of both sides. They all had a combination of 2 moons and stars on their chests. They were all powerhouses. And right now, they were currently waiting for Voidless Realm's representative, and all of them were making guesses in low voices. Who do you guys think Voidless Realm will send this time? The Empress might come. The Empress? I haven't even seen the Empress's appearance yet. With the Empress's appearance, after you see her appearance once, you will feel that other women will not be able to enter your eyes at all. Is it that exaggerated? Whoever sees her will know. Right now, Bai Cixin and Lord Jiao were sitting at the top of the round table. This kind of situation was just like when the gangsters were having a meeting, the underlings were all standing at the entrance and the big brothers were just sitting there. Lord Jiu will voidless realm? Right now, Bai Cixin was also uncertain. If the Empress is really going to come, what should I do? However, upon thinking that this is my territory, Bai Cixin felt a lot more at ease. After all, there are still Qing Tiendi and Feng Tian behind me. Lord Jiu smoked his cigar and squinted his eyes. He was also feeling uncertain in his heart, but he still said, Alliance Master Bai, be at ease, it doesn't matter even if the Empress doesn't come. It will only increase the negative influence of the Empress, which is beneficial to us. Bai Cixin's face became gloomy. This voidless realm is truly hard to deal with. When will I be able to take my revenge? Just as everyone was discussing in low voices. Ding. The elevator door opened and everyone's gaze looked towards the entrance of the elevator. Voidless realms people are here. As the elevator door opened, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. A short and small figure could be seen inside the elevator. However, this was not the main point. 2 moon-class experts could be seen floating in the air beside the short figure. The 2 people didn't die, rather they were struggling with all their might, and their legs were powerlessly kicking against the ground. Everyone discovered that the 2 people seemed to be the guards below. Yi Zizi appeared in splendid attire today. She was wearing a pink princess dress and a pink big round hat, looking very stylish. Coupled with that cute ponytail of hers, she simply looked like a lovable little loli. Of course, that was during normal times. Right now she wasn't cute at all. Even if the little loli were to smile, that smile was the smile of death. Yi Zizi's high-heeled shoes made clanking sounds as she blinked her scarlet eyes and sized up the people below. Chapter 599. Suddenly, Wang Debao seemed to have thought of something. The girl inside the coffin. Didn't they dig out a coffin last year when they were fighting over an ancient godly item? The coffin looks exactly the same. Those who witnessed Yi Zizi's appearance back then were all dead, and only this Wang Debao was still alive. Therefore Wang Debao was confused. However, Wang Debao didn't dare to be sure. Perhaps the girl only looked similar. However, looking at the current situation, it was clear that the girl came with ill intentions. A moon-class expert from the Justice and Order Alliance stood out and shouted, "Who are you? Hurry up and release them." Yi Zizi didn't say anything and a strand of her hair quietly slipped out. Under everyone's surprised voice, the strand of hair pierced through the man's head and directly hung him up. Yi Zizi lightly yawned, then said, "A lowly ant dares to look me straight in the eye." The 3 people who were hung up in the air were directly sucked dry, and their corpses were thrown to the side by Yi Zizi. Yi Zizi no longer cared about this kind of miscellaneous food. Gods were still the easiest to suck. A little girl came to this kind of situation and killed 3 people just because she didn't agree with them. How arrogant is she? Alright, these were just thoughts. Right now, no one dared to say anything because the scene was too shocking. They couldn't even look at her. If they looked at her, they would die. Bai Cixin and Jiu Yi were also shocked. Just who is this? Didn't you want to negotiate? Where is she? Yi Zizi didn't even walk over and shouted out. She came to negotiate? This little girl came to negotiate. If that's the case, this little girl is from Voidless Realm. As expected, this Voidless Realm isn't a good thing. An organization that randomly kills people, this kind of organization should be eliminated. Everyone was just thinking about it, but no one stood out. Because everyone was afraid of death. A moon-class expert died without even being able to resist. How terrifying. Yi Zizi took out a lollipop and put it in her mouth. Are we not going to negotiate anymore? Feng Di snorted coldly. What a silly little girl, is there no one else in Voidless Realm? Yi Zizi looked at Feng Di and an evil smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Little big brother has an opinion of me? Humph. Pretending to be mysterious. Feng Di twisted his fist and said with a strong murderous aura. Yi Zizi suddenly opened a pink flower umbrella and said with a smile, "Little brother, come here." As the leader of the Righteous Alliance, how could Feng Di endure such mockery? He immediately threw a punch towards Yi Zizi with the roar of a tiger. Yi Zizi's clothes fluttered in the wind, showing how violent this punch was. The people standing at the side exclaimed, "What a powerful punch. Indeed, this is the most awesome punch I've ever seen. I reckon that this punch will turn everything into dust." Everyone spoke one after another as if Yi Zizi was about to die under this punch. Yi Zizi shrugged her shoulders. Why would they think that way? She was really unhappy. Against such a person, Yi Zizi did not need to use her full strength at all. In fact, she did not even need to use a tiny bit of her strength. A single strand of hair was enough to settle it. Boom. Feng Di's punch seemed to have landed on thin air, leaving everyone speechless. However, only Feng Di knew what his punch had landed on. Feng Di's gaze focused and a strand of hair entered his eyes. She actually used a strand of hair to block my punch. How is this possible? Little brother is not much, I am very disappointed. Yi Zizi slowly spat out. Her hair was like a sharp bayonet that pierced through Feng Di's head at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. From the perspective of others, Feng Di was just standing there without moving, and Yi Zizi was the same as well. Feng Di only felt a chill in the center of his brows, and his head started hurting. After that, his ears started ringing. Blood flowed down from Feng Di's forehead, and this caused everyone to reveal an expression of panic. Nothing happened just now. Why did Feng Di's forehead start bleeding? Could it be this little girl? But that's not possible, I didn't even see her make a move. Feng Di looked at the little girl in front of him blankly, and his vision became completely red. Feng Di's consciousness also became blurry, and he directly fell backwards. Yi Zizi licked her lollipop and said with a smile, "Who else?" Everyone shifted their gaze away. Feng Di is a powerful being with 3 moons and he died just like that. Are we really Voidless Realm's opponent? This question appeared in everyone's heart. This little girl's performance is too overpowered. It's impossible for us to resist at all. Who is going to negotiate with us? If you don't speak, I'm going to slap you. Yi Zizi felt that the mission that his honor gave her was too easy, and there was no technique involved at all. If I had known that this mission would be so boring, I wouldn't have come. I might as well just stay at home and play games. In the future, it's best that I don't take on missions like this anymore and I can't kill too many people. Sigh. In actuality, Yi Zizi's change wasn't that big. She was still as bloodthirsty as before, and the only thing that changed was that her mind had matured slightly. She wasn't as reckless as before and she knew how to think. Feng Di's death caused Bai Cixin and Wang Debao to be dumbstruck. Feng Di is Feng Tian's blood-related younger brother. However, what can we do now? There's simply nothing we can do. Jiu Yi and Bai Cixin let out a breath of relief, then slowly stood up. This Voidless Realm's people really don't act according to common sense. They killed someone right away and we can only walk over to negotiate with them. But what else can we do? This is a world where the strong are respected, and what the strong say goes, the weak don't have the qualifications to speak. When Yi Zizi saw the 2 of them walking over, she naturally didn't plan to kill them, because the 2 of them were important people. Speak, what do you want to talk about? Yi Zizi's pair of scarlet eyes caused Jiu Yi and Bai Cixin to be afraid. In this sort of situation, negotiating with them is just like a joke. Voidless Realm. Before Bai Cixin could finish speaking, Yi Zizi already decided to speak. Is it your turn to care about what Voidless Realm does? Do you really think that the world has changed? Yi Zizi said with a light smile. Yi Zizi's sweet voice made everyone feel very comfortable, and they even felt like falling asleep. Everyone thought to themselves, is this little girl so domineering? Bai Cixin mustered up her courage and said, even the emperor who commits a crime will be punished with the same punishment, let alone Voidless Realm. Yi Zizi sneered, Voidless Realm is the law. Everyone took in a breath of cold air. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Jiu Yi remained silent as he pondered in his heart. I'll just let Bai Cixin who is beside me speak. Could it be that your Voidless Realm is going to let us off just like that? Bai Cixin still has a bit of courage. Under this situation where there is such a huge disparity in strength, she is still able to say such a thing. Then what do you want to do? Yi Zizi asked curiously. Voidless Realm has to give a corresponding punishment, if not, you will have to bear the consequences. Bai Cixin shouted out. Wang Debao who was at the side was prepared to come out and protect his wife at any moment, and his back was already drenched with cold sweat. Chapter 600. Yi Zizi grinned. Ignorant humans, you are not the first to say such a thing. The last person who said such a thing is already dead. Do you want to repeat the same mistake? In this world, there will always be some people who want to test the bottom line, and when they truly test the bottom line, they will know how terrifying the despair within is. Unless they are the kind of people who eat despair for breakfast. This is no longer the matter of the North, it is the matter of the entire North and South. Does Voidless Realm dare to kill so many people? Aren't they afraid of the wrath of the heavens? Bai Cixin was also angered. The matter of being chased out of the North by Voidless Realm was still on her mind, and if she doesn't understand it, she won't be able to feel at ease for the rest of her life. Wrath of the heavens? Actually, I am Wrath of the heavens. Yi Zizi said faintly, and the scarlet in her eyes became even more intense. I really want to kill this self-righteous woman in front of me. Where did she get the courage to say such a thing? Is it Liang Jingru? Bai Cixin was angered to the point that she was a bit speechless. This is simply the most absurd negotiation. It is more like Voidless Realm's declaration of war. Jiuyi remained silent, giving off a look of, I don't casually provoke others. The negotiation ends here. Voidless Realm welcomes you all. Yizizi laughed. I'm really looking forward to that day. I wonder if his honor will wipe out everyone like what happened in Heaven's Mansion. If that is really the case, it might be a little interesting. Everyone didn't dare to say anything. They didn't expect that just one person from Voidless Realm would be able to suppress everyone, and furthermore kill people without reason. Under that cute appearance he was extremely savage. Just as Yizizi was preparing to go out and eat something good, a figure suddenly appeared. The person who came was precisely Feng Tian. Looking at his little brother who was lying on the ice-cold floor, Feng Tian walked over expressionlessly, and with a cold look in his eyes he said, Who did this? Yizizi slowly turned around and said with a smile, Me. Feng Tian looked towards Yizizi, and the eyes under the mask were actually spinning. A wave of killing intent immediately spread out, causing everyone to take 3 steps back. Do you want to fight with me as well? Yizizi asked curiously as she blinked her beautiful eyes. How could Feng Tian possibly hold back? His killing intent immediately rose. I want you to die. Alright, let's go somewhere else to play. Yizizi was delighted. I finally met someone who can fight. This feeling isn't bad. After saying that, Yizizi disappeared. Feng Tian disappeared as well. The hearts of everyone present were filled with anticipation. Let's kill this little girl. She's too terrifying. Thousands of kilometers away, Yizizi appeared. Soon, Feng Tian also appeared. Wow, the air here is really good. Yizizi raised her head and closed her beautiful eyes as she took a deep breath. It was really comfortable. Feng Tian's hands were trembling and a majestic spiritual pressure was released uncontrollably. Feng Tian's right hand slowly gripped his mask. Feng Tian took off his mask because he wanted to kill the person in front of him in the cruelest way possible. The moment Feng Tian took off his mask, the sky changed color. Dark clouds covered the sky and thunder rumbled. The terrifying spiritual energy swept across the sky and turned into a strange scene. The spiritual energy was so strong that it seemed like it was going to tear the air apart. The moment Feng Tian took off his mask, he lowered his head as though he was lifeless. Yizizi held onto her pink umbrella and mumbled, He's quite powerful. All of a sudden, white gloves appeared on Feng Tian's hands, and the spiritual pressure surged once again. The grass seemed to be unable to withstand such power and started splitting apart. Feng Tian suddenly disappeared while laughing maniacally. Yizizi wrinkled her brows and leaned her head to the right. A fist appeared on the left side of Yizizi's face. Yizizi was startled for a moment, then she lightly leaped up. This person's speed and strength are not bad, much stronger than those deities. Yizizi, who had leaped up high, lowered her head and saw that there was no one there. All of a sudden she felt a violent power coming from above her head. Yizizi felt that it was time for her to loosen up. Back then she fought with his honor and I felt really good. It has already been more than half a year, and I still haven't gotten the chance to fight. It wasn't easy for me to meet someone that I can fight with, so I have to have a good fight with him. Yizizi clenched her small fist and punched toward the direction above her head. Boom. The collision between the two fists caused the entire sky to tremble. A huge shockwave spread out, and even a dazzling light exploded out from the collision. Ah! Not bad, you are actually able to block a punch from me. Feng Tian's face was extremely distorted, and he looked just like a lunatic. Yizizi smiled and said, You are not bad yourself. Let me see how many punches you can take from me then. Feng Tian shouted out violently, and the spiritual energy around his body became a bit denser. There wasn't any technique involved in his punches, and he simply punched and retracted his fists. At this level, everything else was no longer that important. A single punch from him was enough to destroy the world. Yizizi held onto the umbrella with her left hand and fought against Feng Tian with her right hand. Every single punch landed on Feng Tian's body, and it was extremely terrifying. Every time their punches collided, a powerful spiritual energy fluctuation would be produced, and a crack in space would slowly form. Feng Tian's punches could be seen becoming faster and faster, and the strength of his punches also became more and more ferocious. Yizizi adjusted the strength of her punches according to Feng Tian's strength so that she wouldn't be able to smash Feng Tian into pieces with a single punch. This punch isn't bad, it's very crafty. If your punches were a bit faster, your punches would be able to graze the corner of my clothes. Although Yizizi was punching Feng Tian, she was also lecturing Feng Tian non-stop. What was the combination of strength and speed? That was perfect. Feng Tian couldn't do it here, there, or anywhere else. She made Feng Tian sound like he was useless. From the start, Feng Tian went berserk, and the more he fought, the darker his expression became. When experts fought, they would hold back and wouldn't go all out. But now Feng Tian was slowly releasing his strength, but Lin Fan was like a bottomless pit. No matter how he adjusted, Lin Fan was able to receive his punches. Such a situation caused Feng Tian to be speechless. His maniacal and vicious face sank, and it was as if he was beaten to the point of being autistic. Izizi put away the small umbrella and chuckled, "All right, I'll fight you seriously." "What? Weren't you serious enough just now?" Feng Tian didn't dare to be careless, and he stared at Izizi. In less than a breath, Feng Tian saw the small fist in front of him getting bigger and bigger. Feng Tian hurriedly blocked it, and he was forced back dozens of meters. Izizi waved her fist. "You have to hold on. I am coming." After saying that, Izizi disappeared from the spot. Feng Tian didn't dare to be careless, and he exploded with all his strength. From time to time, waves of energy would explode out from the grassland, and the torn space would get bigger and bigger. A terrifying aura was emitted from within, as if there was a strong creature that was about to make a move. As long as the torn space got bigger, the terrifying existence inside would appear and destroy the world. Chapter 601. A human figure fell down from the sky, leaving behind a huge crater on the ground. However, the human figure then rushed back up to the sky from the crater. Then the human figure fell down again, then rushed back up again. Countless craters could be seen appearing on the ground. Izizi was also bored from fighting, so she stood in the sky and waved her fists weakly. Feng Tian was just like a sandbag going up and down. But no matter what, he still rushed forward without any hesitation. That ferocity of his is admirable. Izizi let out a light sigh. The difference in strength is still so big, and only his honor is able to defeat me. Izizi lowered her head and looked at Feng Tian, who was lying in the crater. Izizi slowly descended and stood beside the crater. Feng Tian, who was lying in the crater, could be seen being severely injured. One of his eyes was big while the other was small, and both of his arms were twisted at a weird angle. Izizi spat out lightly. "This is so miserable. This scene seems so familiar." Back then, Feng Tian also looked at the blood demon in the crater like this. "I didn't expect that a few months later, I would experience it myself." Feng Tian's gaze was a bit slack as he looked at the sky foolishly, as if he couldn't accept such a cruel reality. Judging from his expression, he was really beaten to the point that he started doubting his life. However, Izizi didn't plan to kill this man. "He is already so miserable, I reckon that he will become a cripple." Sigh. "I can only blame myself for being too strong. It's hard to find an opponent." Izizi opened up her umbrella, and suddenly, a gale swept over. At the same time, the gale also brought along a vicious aura. The enormous pressure caused the entire ground to tremble. Izizi turned her head around and looked blankly. Such a big, husky. Izizi's description of the husky was rather fitting. It was about the same size as the husky, but its size was shockingly huge. Izizi looked just like a small dot. This was a prehistoric ferocious beast, Yun Lang. It was the same rank as the Inferno Abyssal Dragon that Yihua summoned back then. And for it to appear here today was completely an accident. "Ah!" Yun Lang raised his head and let out a long howl. "I can finally see the sky. After being locked in the void for so long. How hateful. Puny humans, go and die. How can you be a match for me, Yun Lang?" Izizi saw that the husky was grimacing in pain, looking extremely fierce. Just like in the video, Izizi looked as if he was going to fight with the Tibetan Mastiff. "Big brother, I'm just joking, don't take it seriously." Feng Tian, who was lying in the pit, also saw the husky. However, he was still expressionless. He didn't know how to feel anymore. Izizi felt as if she had lost a dog. This husky didn't seem to be so husky. It would be perfect if it could wag its tail. "Roar?" Yun Lang roared angrily at Izizi. "Lowly human, kneel down." Izizi snorted. "Do you think you're the only one who knows how to roar?" Izizi took a deep breath and released all of her aura. Then she opened her small mouth and shouted, "Roar!" How was this a little girl's voice? It was more ferocious than a beast's. Speaking of which, Izizi's true form wasn't that of a human. Rather, it was more or less the same as a ferocious beast. Coupled with the fact that her aura was fully unleashed, it was indeed very frightening. The hair on Yun Lang's body fluttered from Izizi's wind. His eyes widened in horror. Such an expression on the husky's face did not seem out of place. It was a normal expression. Izizi wiped her mouth and took out a lollipop. Yun Lang swallowed his saliva. He didn't dare to run away at all. That aura just now was simply terrifying to the extreme. It was even more powerful than the person who banished me into the void. What are you standing there for? Become small. Yi Zizi said petulantly. You're really stupid. Yun Lang didn't dare to speak anymore. His body immediately shrunk to the size of a dog. A pure-blooded husky appeared. Wag your tail. Yi Zizi said curiously. Yun Lang lowered his head with a face full of fear. He could only listen to Yi Zizi and wag his tail. Haha, fun. Yi Zizi was extremely excited. This dog is much more fun than that cat. Yun Lang was in despair. He suddenly discovered that the void was pretty good. Although it was a bit dark, there wasn't anyone who looked at me as a dog. Why am I so unlucky to meet such a person the moment I come out? Not right. I should be glad that I didn't get killed by such a person. In actuality, being a dog isn't bad either. I heard that all dogs eat and sleep, sleep and eat. Thinking up to here, Yun Lang felt a bit relieved. Being a dog is really good. Feng Tian, who was in the pit, didn't know what happened. He just felt a very terrifying aura, and then it disappeared. However, that wasn't the main issue. I was actually beaten up by a little girl, ruthlessly beaten up without any mercy. Feng Tian appeared to be in a daze. After returning back, Yi Zizi reported the mission to Yi Hua. Yi Hua was rather satisfied. At the very least, Yi Zizi controlled herself well and only killed 3 people. If I didn't guess wrongly, they should be attacking soon, right? If that's the case, I should also make some preparations and think of a good way to act cool. I have already used all the previous methods and there's nothing new about them. I have to think of something unique. Yi Hua, how did the negotiation go? Donghuang Baiji walked over and asked curiously. The negotiation failed, they want you to apologize. Yi Hua was speaking the truth. To actually want my woman to apologize, don't you know that my woman cannot be provoked? Donghuang Baiji appeared to be panting with anger. Of course, this was only in front of her husband. If she was in front of outsiders, her face would be cold. Baiji, what do you think we should do? They should be attacking us together, and by then there would be quite a lot of them. Yi Hua asked curiously, not knowing what choice Donghuang Baiji would make. There was a world of difference between killing 100 people and killing a few 100,000 people. Donghuang Baiji pondered for quite a while, then said with a cold look in her eyes, to come and invade my voidless realm. That's an enemy and there's nothing to talk about when facing an enemy. This is my good woman. Yi Hua hugged Donghuang Baiji into his embrace. It wasn't easy for her to be enlightened. Don't hug me too tightly, be careful of my child. Donghuang Baiji pouted coquettishly, fearing that she might hurt her child. Although she knew it would be fine as a mother, it was normal for her to be worried. Making a mountain out of a molehill, I'm going back for a while. Yi Hua said lightly, then returned to Leisure Bar. In actuality, I wanted to go and buy a Chinese jianbing and ask the auntie about her son's situation. After all, I, the Supreme Overlord, had promised to help her son. Walking out of Leisure Bar, Yi Hua arrived at the entrance of the alley. Although it is already 10 a.m., the aunties are still setting up their stall, and there are also quite a number of people who are buying Chinese crepes. It was probably lunchtime. Give me a fruit jianbing. Yi Hua walked over and said faintly. When the aunt saw that it was Yi Hua, her face lit up. Thank you so much. Hearing what Wu Li said, Yi Hua knew that Wu Li should have gone back. I told you I could help you. Chapter 602. Seeing the warm smile on the aunt's face, Yi Hua nodded his head, hoping that his son would not do anything foolish. Otherwise, how painful it would be to leave his old mother in this world. Here's your fruit jianbing, eat it while it's hot. The aunt passed the fruit jianbing to Yi Hua. Yi Hua held it in his hand and feeling the heat coming from it, he let out a breath and walked back to Leisure Bar. While looking at Yi Hua's back view, the aunt revealed a look of gratefulness. What a good person. Is Yi Hua a good person? Yi Hua was obviously not a good person. For him to be able to do all these for the auntie, he had already reached the point of being extremely benevolent. If her son continues to persist in going about things the wrong way, Yi Hua wouldn't continue to dissuade him. It was just a pity for this kind-hearted auntie. While eating a Chinese jianbing, Yi Hua returned back to Leisure Bar. Just in time, he saw a dog running in the hall, and Blood Demon was holding onto a mop and chasing after the dog ferociously. Looking at the dog, Blood Demon seemed to be itching to make a dog meat hot pot tonight. Yi Hua was able to discern the dog's breed, with a single look, and he was a bit surprised. Why did such a ferocious beast come to this place? Perhaps it was because Yun Lang was running too quickly and was actually running towards Yi Hua's direction. However, Yun Lang's head was looking towards the blood demon that was at the back. It was as if he was teasing the blood demon. There was a loud bang. Yun Lang's head knocked onto Yihua's calf, and after letting out the unique howl of a husky, Yun Lang fell onto the ground. Yun Lang did not cower and immediately stood up. With a face full of vigilance, he looked at Yihua and let out a low roar, seeming like he was about to make a move. "Your Honor, this dog stole food from the kitchen, peed on the table and even bit on the table." Blood Demon hurriedly pointed out the evidence of the husky's crimes. This only meant one thing: this was a genuine husky. Yihua raised his leg and gave a kick. "To actually dare to bare his teeth at me, you sure have guts." Yun Lang let out that unique howl again, but it wasn't a big deal. He stood up and ran upstairs, barking like a dog as he ran, as though he was saying, "Wait for me, I'll go call big brother, oh no, big sister." Yihua didn't pay attention to it and sat at the bar counter. Blood Demon respectfully poured wine for Yihua. This Chinese jianbing is quite good to pair with wine. Soon Yun Lang called big sister down. Yihua took a look at the dog, then said faintly, "The dog that you brought back? Your Honor, what do you think of this husky? Is it a ha?" Yi Zizi pinched onto Yun Lang's ear and said with a smile. At this moment Yun Lang felt a little giddy. Just what kind of world is this? Big sister actually called this man Lord. Could it be that this man is a supreme being? Even if it's a supreme martial artist, I, silly husky, will not back down. No, even I, Yun Lang, will not cower. It wasn't that Yihua hadn't raised a dog before, but this dog breed seemed to be a bit inferior. "Zizi, don't bring everything into the house." "Things?" He actually called me, Yun Lang, a thing. "Big sister, hurry up and shout." Yi Zizi directly sat on Yihua's embrace and acted coquettishly. "Your Honor, aren't I too bored? With a dog I can also go out for a walk." "Wow. Big sister, how can you do this? Where is your dignity? You are actually acting like a spoiled child in this man's arms. Besides, I'm doing this for everyone's sake. We'll have dog meat to eat during the spring festival." Yi Zizi grinned. The corners of Yun Lang's mouth twitched violently. Was he hallucinating just now? They must be talking about someone else. "I, Yun Lang, am a primordial ferocious beast. Do you know what a ferocious beast is? The kind that was very fierce. Super fierce. Sit down." Yi Zizi shouted out towards Yun Lang. Yun Lang sat down without even thinking. "Lick my tongue." Yun Lang stuck out his tongue and exhaled loudly. "Your Honor, is this husky very stupid?" "Yun Lang," Yihua rubbed onto the bridge of his nose, then took a sip of wine. "Watch for yourself." Seeing that his honor agreed, Yi Zizi suddenly kissed onto Yihua's cheek, then sat on Yun Lang's back. "Husky, bring me upstairs to play games." Wu Yun Lang was still very cooperative, and he carried Yi Zizi upstairs. Yihua shook his head helplessly, then looked at the blood demon who was currently carefully wiping a cup. That focused attitude of his made it seem as if he was doing something big. This blood demon is rather interesting. Not only is he not good at causing harm to the common people, but he is also good at cleaning. "Your Honor, are you going to eat lunch here? I will go and prepare." Blood Demon placed down the cup in his hand and asked respectfully. "It's okay." Yihua still planned to return to Voidless Realm to accompany his wife and child. "Right now, I am a man who has to take care of a family. The changes in this year sure are huge. Last year I was still alone." "Yes." Blood Demon replied respectfully. Right now, Feng Tian, who was in the crater, was looking at the blue sky and white clouds stupidly, and he didn't even notice that Qing Tian had suddenly appeared beside him. Qing Tian murmured, "He's been beaten silly." After letting out a light sigh, Qing Tian still brought Feng Tian away, then put on the mask on Feng Tian. After returning to the base, Qing Tian treated Feng Tian's injuries. All of them were just some superficial injuries, so the treatment was much simpler. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin, who were standing at the side, had grave expressions on their faces. This Feng Tian was actually beaten silly by that little girl to the point that he became autistic. "Big brother Qing, this Feng Tian?" Wang Debao couldn't help but ask. Qing Tian let out a long sigh, then shook his head. "I'm afraid that it will be hard for him to recover. His self-esteem has been completely destroyed." "Just how miserable is he?" Bai Cixin said lightly. "Completely destroyed just like that? Is there really such a terrifying thing in the world?" Qing Tian smiled faintly. "This means that the little girl is very powerful, to be able to beat someone with such a strong self-esteem to such a state. Then, big brother Qing, are you able to win against him?" Wang Debao asked probingly. Qing Tian hesitated for a moment, then said, "It's hard to say, I will only know after I fight him." Hearing what Qing Tian said, Wang Debao and Bai Cixin both became silent. Right now, Justice and Order Alliance was relying on Qing Tian to keep up appearances. However, right now, even Qing Tian doesn't have the confidence to win against Feng Tian. Don't be so pessimistic, go and order a takeaway first. That roasted pig trotter is not bad, it's very flavorful. Give me two, I will let this Feng Tian think about life. Qing Tian smiled faintly, then walked out of the room. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin took a look at each other. They were a bit confused. When they came downstairs, they saw that Qing Tian was currently leisurely watching TV, seemingly not putting the problem in his heart at all. Bai Cixin sat beside Qing Tian, while Wang Debao was in charge of the outside. Big brother Qing, what should we do about Voidless Realm? Bai Cixin still wanted to ask about the situation clearly. After all, they cannot be careless. Qing Tian was currently watching If You Are the One, and with a smile on the corner of his mouth he said, just continue to fan the flames, when it's about time we will attack. Do we have any hope of winning against them? Bai Cixin was very worried. Yi Zizi's appearance caused Bai Cixin to lose confidence, and furthermore Feng Tian was also beaten to such a state. Qing Tian placed his chin on his hand and said faintly, no. Chapter 603. Wang Debao went into a daze. Since there aren't any, why are we still going? Isn't that just courting death? Bai Cixin didn't understand and asked, since there aren't any, why are we still going? Do you think there's any difference between killing hundreds of people and hundreds of thousands of people? Qing Tian slowly looked towards Bai Cixin. The latter's heart trembled and she didn't dare to look straight at Qing Tian's eyes. Wang Debao slapped onto his thigh and cried out, Big brother Qing. By doing this, you mean? That's right. This is what I mean. Qing Tian laughed lightly. But, what exactly does he mean? Bai Cixin glared at her husband. What are you doing here, pretending to know what you don't know? Wang Debao scratched the back of his head and felt a bit awkward. I didn't expect that Big Brother Qing wouldn't act according to the norm. Big Brother Qing, don't hide it anymore, what exactly do you mean? Bai Cixin asked solemnly. She didn't know what Qing Tian was planning to do. Since there isn't any chance of winning, why are we still going? Qing Tian took out a piece of tissue, wiped the back of his hand, then said indifferently, if Voidless Realm really massacred hundreds of thousands of people, what difference do you think there is between that and hundreds of people? Bai Cixin and Wang Debao opened their mouths wide. At this moment they finally understood what Qing Tian meant. Courting death. Sending these people to die as cannon fodder. This method is simply infuriating. Qing Tian continued, if we don't use our lives to attract hatred, what should we use to attract hatred? The husband and wife's entire body went numb from Qing Tian's words. That relaxed look on their face made it seem as if they were playing a game, and they didn't put human lives in their eyes at all. Ordinary people are unable to bring down Voidless Realm, only some old monsters can be lured out. However, these old monsters will not come out unless they have no other choice, you two should understand what I mean, right? Qing Tian yawned. A plan has to be done step by step, it can't be too fast, after all, haste makes waste. Old monsters? Wang Debao asked confusedly. Qing Tian folded the tissue in his hand and placed it at the side. This Feng Tian is also an old monster, it's just that his strength is relatively weaker. These people hide in the crowd and don't care about the secular world. As long as nothing big happens, they won't make a move. Alright, I am also one of these old monsters. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin were shocked. This was the first time they had heard of an old monster, and Qing Tiandi was one of them. Just how many unknowns are there in this world? Alright, take your time to digest this news. Don't forget to spread hatred. Qing Tian reminded them and then continued to watch the TV with a look that said, don't disturb me anymore. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin were also very tactful and did not continue to ask. The father and son walked to the garden outside the house and chatted softly. Wife, Wang Debao said worriedly. Bai Cixin knew what her husband wanted to say, so she said in a sweet voice, I know, don't worry. Although revenge was important, it was also necessary to be alive. From Qing Tian's performance, it seemed that there was no trust in him. He had to leave a way out for himself. Even if they were exposed, at least they would have a chance to live. At this moment, Lord Jiu was not in a hurry to return to Long'an City. Instead, he was walking on the streets holding the 8848 titanium phone in his hand. This was because another master had sent a message saying that he wanted to meet him, and Lord Jiu was currently on the way there. Speaking of old monsters, Lord Jiu had many masters like this. Standing outside of a Starbucks, Lord Jiu was a bit surprised. Meeting here? Isn't this too rash? However, these masters all have their own eccentricities and I am already used to it. Walking into the Starbucks, there were a few youngsters sitting inside and there were also a few waiters. Lord Jiu observed these youngsters and felt that something was wrong. Did I go to the wrong place? There's no mistake, this is the right place. Mister, do you need anything? A waiter asked with a smile. Lord Jiu let out a breath. Perhaps the master hasn't arrived yet. Give me a cup of latte. Lord Jiu said faintly. All right, please wait a moment. Lord Jiu chose a seat and quietly waited. From time to time he would take out his phone and look at it. Master couldn't have forgotten about it, right? Your coffee. The waiter served the coffee and said with a smile. Lord Jiu nodded his head, then took a sip of the coffee and wrinkled his brows. As expected, I am still not suitable to drink coffee. Seeing that Lord Jiu didn't say anything, the waiter returned to his position. Time passed by and Lord Jiu was about to fall asleep. That was impossible. His master had asked him to come, but he had left. Wasn't that the same as dying? The reason why I, Lord Jiu, am able to get to where I am today is because I have an extremely strong sense of smell. Master must be testing my patience. Maybe he's using binoculars to peek. Master was so mischievous. As the curtain of night descended, the master had yet to arrive, and Jiu Yi had already fallen asleep. He had already refilled countless cups of coffee, yet he was still able to fall asleep. After an unknown amount of time, Lord Jiu heard a young lady's voice. Sir, we're off work. Jiu Yi slowly opened his eyes, took a puzzled look, then looked at his watch. It is already so late. Seems like master has already forgotten about me, sigh. Lord Jiu stood up and walked out of Starbucks. It was still a little cold in Harbor City late at night. Lord Jiu straightened his collar and called for a taxi. Sorry to keep you waiting. Lord Jiu's eyes suddenly froze. Could the voice behind him be his master? Slowly turning his head, the corner of Lord Jiu's mouth twitched. Isn't that the waiter from the beginning? Shit. Lord Jiu swallowed his saliva and sized him up carefully. Ordinary long sleeves, jeans, a broken car. A bicycle, and looking at the age of the waiter, he seems to only be in his early 20s. This is my master? Or are you trying to bluff? Don't be deceived by my appearance. Jiu Yi was still a bit nervous as he asked while trembling with fear, Master, how should I address you? Just call me Chuing. Chuing? To actually have such a feminine name, Master. Weren't you too hasty when you chose the name? Jiu Yi only dared to think about it in his heart, and even more so did not dare to call out his master's name. Master, I wonder why you called me over? Jiu Yi lowered his head and asked. Chuing propped up the bicycle, then took out a can of refine from the plastic bag. Do you want a drink? Thank you, Master. Jiu Yi received the can with both of his hands, and Chuing opened a can of refine. Jiu Yi reminded, Master, it is not safe to drive after drinking. Chuing, who was raising her head, went into a daze for a moment, then took a look at her bicycle and said with a smile, Indeed, it is not safe to drive after drinking. Jiu Yi smiled, then opened the can of refine that was in his hands and discovered that the taste was not bad. Chapter 604. Chuing put the Rio back into the plastic bag and got on her bike. I didn't ask you to come today, so go do your work. Then, Master, the matter about dealing with Voidless Realm that you mentioned? Jiu Yi shouted out hurriedly. Right now, I don't have any confidence in my heart. Just a little girl from Voidless Realm is enough to intimidate everyone. Chuing waved her hand as she rode her bicycle. Do as you see fit. Looking at his master disappearing on the street, Jiu Yi was a bit stupefied. This master is the one that has the least pretentious amongst all of the masters, and he actually let me handle such a big matter. A Maybach stopped beside Lord Jiu, and a Moon-class elite quickly got off and opened the door for Lord Jiu. Lord Jiu thought to himself that his masters were all low-key, and he was sitting in such a luxurious car. Wasn't it a bit too much? It shouldn't be too much. One should know how to enjoy life. This master is actually working at Starbucks. This is really blinding my eyes. Meanwhile, inside Voidless Realm, Yi Hua and his two wives were preparing to sleep. Although all of them wanted to sleep together, Yi Hua didn't force them. If he really wanted to force them, it wouldn't be a problem for him to do so. However, the feeling of doing so wouldn't be too good. He had to make them be willing to do so first. Hugging onto the most beautiful and sexiest woman in the world, Yi Hua felt very good in his heart. Although he couldn't use his gun for real, it was still possible for him to have some fun. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji also wouldn't say anything about it. You have to be prepared. The Righteous Alliance and the Peace Association will not let this matter rest. The two wives who were sleeping at the side remained silent, and their faces were completely red. It seems like the feeling is starting to come. I'm asking you guys a question, why aren't you guys talking? Yi Hua asked puzzledly, then turned his head around to take a look. These two women obviously wanted to die, but they were still stubbornly holding on. What was the point? They were already an old couple, yet she was still shy. Is it comfortable? Yi Hua couldn't help but tease. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji felt very gloomy. The only thing they could do was to hold onto their husband's hand tightly and not let him act recklessly. Donghuang Baiji hurriedly changed the topic. If they were to really come this time, we wouldn't let them go either. Qingya, who was at the side, nodded her head. They have already killed their way to our doorstep. Could it be that we still have to endure silently? Yi Hua was very satisfied with the wives' attitude. It seems like the soft-heartedness in their hearts have already disappeared. Alright. This time we will show the world. If he dares to come to Voidless Realm, then he will not be able to return. Yi Hua shouted out lightly, and his eyes shone with bloodthirst. Since this is your choice, then I shall grant you death. Another month passed by very quickly. It was almost May Day, but the entire world seemed to have adapted to the new environment. There were more and more cultivators, while the Righteous Alliance and the Peace Association swelled day and night. Furthermore, an attack was also quietly breaking out. The two great powers had already decided to attack Voidless Realm. This was a piece of exciting news. If several 100,000 people were to attack Voidless Realm, they would definitely be able to flatten the entire Voidless Realm. Just thinking about it makes me feel great. I heard that there are a lot of treasures in Voidless Realm, and when the time comes, I will definitely be able to snatch a lot of treasures. In short, exterminating Voidless Realm would bring a lot of benefits. This was also a magnificent feat of exterminating a demon, and this was also a great act of enforcing justice on behalf of heaven. Everyone was getting restless and they couldn't wait to kill everyone in Voidless Realm, plunder everything and burn everything down. Within Wang Debao's villa, Qing Tiandi was the same as usual. He was currently watching television, and in front of him was a bowl of braised beef instant noodles. The entire house was filled with the smell of instant noodles. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin were the same as well. They were very busy recently, and they had to make arrangements for all kinds of people. Suddenly, a sound rang out from the stairs. The three looked towards the stairs and Feng Tian could be seen walking down. This was the first time he came down this month. Feng Tian could be seen to be completely dispirited. His face was filled with stubble, and his hair was not tidied up either. He was beaten up to the point where he could no longer take care of himself. Feng Tian slowly sat down and said in a low voice, "I'm hungry, everyone." Wang Debao hurriedly went to prepare instant noodles, then gave them to Feng Tian. Feng Tian picked up the bowl of instant noodles and said, "Give me another bowl." Feng Tian finished eating bowl after bowl of instant noodles. It was truly an endless cycle. After finishing eating, Feng Tian let out a sigh, then stood up and paused for a moment, then walked back upstairs. Everyone could still hear the sound of the bedroom door closing. Did he recover? Or is he still autistic? Qing Tiandi laughed, then drank a mouthful of soup. This is so fragrant. How are the preparations on your side? Qing Tiandi asked curiously. Bai Cixin's table manners were rather elegant. To be able to eat instant noodles to such an extent, she must be a woman with some skills. And everything has been arranged. 1 week later we will attack together with the people from the Peace Association. Bai Cixin said as she took out a tissue and wiped her mouth. Qing Tiandi laughed softly. Very good, you two also pay attention to your safety. After you go, come back immediately, don't stay for too long. The husband and wife naturally agreed. They didn't plan to stay for too long in the first place, and now that Qing Tiandi said such words, it could be seen just how terrifying Voidless Realm was. With the war around the corner, the two began to feel nervous. Of course they also felt guilty. After all, they were sending people to their deaths. That's hundreds of thousands of people, not just a few hundred. This is completely betraying their comrades. Just thinking about it makes one's hair stand up. On the other side, the aunt was currently packing up her son's clothes. "Wuli, how long are you going to be away for this time?" The aunt asked her son who was in the living room. Wuli was currently making a phone call, and when he heard his mother's question he covered his phone and shouted, "I will be back in a week." After finished speaking, Wuli continued making phone calls. Seems like after that day Wuli had indeed changed a little. However, the aunt knew that her son wanted her to rope in that youngster, and that's why the aunt was trying to please the youngster. Even so, the aunt was still very happy. At the very least, her son was no longer the same as before. After packing up her son's clothes, the aunt took out a bag. Eat at home before you leave. The aunt said in a low voice, afraid that she would disturb her son's discussion. Wu Li smiled and nodded his head. The aunt was very gratified as she walked into the kitchen to cook for her son. Mom, where did you put my toothpaste and toothbrush? Wu Li asked loudly. The aunt who was cooking smiled and said, in the pocket beside it. Oh, I saw it. Very soon, 3 dishes and a soup were served to the table by the aunt. Wu Li walked over from the sofa and cried out in surprise, wow, these are all my favorite dishes. Hearing that, the aunt felt very happy. She scooped a bowl of rice for her son and said, eat more. The aunt sat in front of her son. She didn't eat at all and just watched as her son wolfed down the food. Wu Li went into a daze for a moment, then picked some food for his mother. Mom, why are you looking at me like that? Chapter 605. The mother and son enjoyed a different time. The auntie's eyes were filled with love, and the smile on her face was so gentle. After quite a while, Wu Li held onto his stomach. I'm bloated to death. Silly child, don't overeat. The auntie laughed and scolded. He was already an adult, but he was still acting like a child. Mom, your cooking is too delicious. Wu Li wiped his mouth and chuckled. The auntie smiled gently and said, Mom will cook for you every day from now on. You have to come home often. Wu Li seemed to be affected as well. For the first time he didn't object and even nodded. Standing up, Wu Li grabbed his luggage and walked to the door. The middle-aged woman followed behind him, reluctant to part. Wu Li changed his shoes and opened the door. Ali, be careful. Mom will be waiting for you at home, the auntie shouted worriedly. She felt a heavy feeling in her heart. Wu Li turned around and smiled. Mom, I know. The woman nodded and watched her son walk out of the house. Wu Li, who was dragging his suitcase, paused for a moment. The middle-aged woman looked at her son, who was standing still, and was also puzzled. Did you forget anything else? Wu Li turned his head around and looked towards his mother, and discovered that his mother's sideburns had already turned white, and the wrinkles on her face had also increased. Wu Li walked back and hugged his mother. Mom, thank you. If the aunt remembered correctly, this was the first time her son had hugged her like this. Tears instantly flowed from the corners of her eyes. Good boy. After hugging his mother tightly, Wu Li walked out of the house without hesitation and closed the door. And just like that, the aunt watched as her son's figure disappeared before her eyes. She first stretched out her hand to grab onto him, but then put down her hand. In Voidless Realm, Donghuang Baiji had already received the news. In just 1 week, several 100,000 people would gather together and attack Voidless Realm. This news still caused the Empress to be dazed for quite a while. They really came. Yihua, are we really going to do this? Donghuang Baiji seemed to be a bit unable to bear to do this. After all, those are the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. Last time he had only killed a few hundred, but this time it was not this number. How many families would be destroyed? Yihua didn't have as many concerns as Donghuang Baiji. The enemies had already killed their way to the entrance, so how could he possibly welcome them respectfully? Indeed, they had to welcome him respectfully, and they had to welcome him respectfully with a butcher's knife. Right now, Qinya was much calmer than before. This sort of calmness was the same as Yihua's calmness. It seemed like Qinya didn't have any pity in her heart. Baiji, you are the mistress of Voidless Realm, and there are thousands of people who are depending on you. Could it be that you are planning to surrender? Yihua asked in a low voice. The battle is right around the corner, and to actually say such stupid words. If I were to say this in front of those subordinates of mine, how low would the morale of my subordinates be? Donghuang Baiji hurriedly shook her head. Of course I won't surrender. Yihua said coldly, seems like the incident back then didn't teach them a lesson at all. Do they really think that just by having more people they will be able to solve the problem? Dream on. Qinya tacitly agreed with her husband's words. If more people can solve the problem, then what is the point of having strong people? A mouthful of saliva from each of them was enough to drown an expert. Yihua, don't you think that this matter is a conspiracy? In actuality, Donghuang Baiji was also thinking about this problem. If I were to fall into someone else's scheme, I would appear to be very foolish. This time, Qinya agreed with Donghuang Baiji and said lightly, and on that night, there wasn't a single person left alive. Hold up the world. Yihua said faintly. Qinya and Donghuang Baiji went into a slight daze. It's him? Yihua nodded his head, then took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up. It's very likely that it's him. He sure is an opponent with brains. Then Yihua, why didn't you just kill him? Donghuang Baiji asked curiously. Yihua went into a daze. If I kill him, what am I going to do? It wasn't easy for me to meet a worthy opponent. Of course I can't say such words out loud. If I say it out loud, they will definitely force me to kill him. I couldn't find him, so I asked Brett to retreat. Yi Hua revealed a helpless look. After hearing that, Donghuang Baiji shook her head and said coquettishly, "At such a crucial moment you." Qinya laughed lightly and did not say anything. "Alright, right now, everyone is looking at you, Donghuang Baiji's decision. Don't throw my face away." Yi Hua said gravely, then stood up and walked out of the room. In the past I have always been worried about Qinya. Now that Qinya is fine, Donghuang Baiji has become indecisive again. Hearing what Yi Hua said, Donghuang Baiji pouted her mouth. "I feel a bit wronged. How would I dare to throw your face away?" Qinya picked up the teacup and took a small sip. "Baiji, don't you know that we are men? We want our face even if we die." "I know, but I don't feel like I have lost my face." "You make it sound like I have already lost my face." The Empress felt very wronged. "I'm even thinking of ways to help you gain face." Qinya walked to Donghuang Baiji's side and patted on Donghuang Baiji's shoulder. Yi Hua's temper is a bit big sometimes, and his words are also very straightforward. Don't take it to heart. I know this fellow only knows how to bully us, and he even said that I have lost his face. Donghuang Baiji hugged onto Qinya and said. Alright, Yi Hua's words have indeed hurt Donghuang Baiji a bit. As a wife, losing her husband's face is a very serious matter, and what Yi Hua said just now caused Donghuang Baiji to feel very gloomy. Qinya smiled helplessly, then stroked Donghuang Baiji's hair. Alright, I will help you teach him a lesson. You have to teach him a lesson in front of me then. Alright, why have you become like Yener? Donghuang Baiji pinched onto Qinya petulantly. As a sister, you have to comfort my broken heart. Alright, Anfu. Then next time when I am bullied you have to do the same too. Qinya smiled tenderly. Sure. Fortunately, the two little fellows were not here. Otherwise, when they saw the two mothers like this, their jaws would have dropped to the ground. Did their mothers have such an operation? He had learned something new. The two women comforted each other in the room, and Yi Hua went to leisure bar. As for what he was going to do, of course, it was to hold another mobilization meeting. He called all of his subordinates over for a meeting. This time, even Air Ha and Floating Battle were present. Regarding the matter regarding Do Fusher, Yi Hua was the one who agreed to Do Fusher. As long as Do Fusher was able to deal with Absolute Heaven and Brett, Yi Hua would accept Do Fusher. Although the process was a little fierce, at least it was completed. As an honorable supreme, he couldn't go back on his words, right? I hate deceiving people the most. As for that Yun Lang, he had now become Yi Zizi's little brother. Wouldn't a subordinate's little brother be his own little brother's little brother? There was nothing he could do. This was Do Fusher's first time participating in a meeting, so he was a little reserved. Of course, he was also very shocked. His mind was in a daze the entire time. So it turns out that there is someone above my big brother. There is someone above my big brother's big brother. Oh my God. How is this possible? Furthermore, I feel that I am very weak. I am standing at the very back of the line. Furthermore, there are so many beauties, so many handsome guys. My appearance is gone in an instant. I am so sad, I really want to cry. However, at the same time that he was shocked, Floating Battle was also very excited. So strong. This is a gathering of powerful individuals. Chapter 606. Yun Lang, who was squatting beside Yi Zizi, also had the same feeling. He couldn't even sense the aura of these people. How powerful were they? They were so frightening that this husky wanted to whimper. However, being able to follow these powerful people made Yun Lang feel very good. His silvery white tail kept wagging, making him look more and more like a husky. Subordinate. We pay our respects to his honor. Everyone shouted out in unison. Their imposing manner was extraordinary, as if they were going to go to war. What is called imposing manner? This is called imposing manner. Towards someone like Donghuang Baiji, it would only lower her imposing manner. Yi Hua raised his hand, and everyone was pulled up by a formless power. Do Fusher, who was standing at the back, was so excited that he started sweating. As expected, I have followed the right person. If I follow his honor, I will be able to eat and drink well, and furthermore, I won't be bullied by anyone. To think that I, Do Fusher, would be able to have such a day. Cool. Yi Hua first lit up a stick of cigarette, then said gravely, 1 week later there will be a small-scale battle. That's right. In Yi Hua's opinion, this kind of battle with several 100,000 people was only a small-scale battle, and the battle with Heaven's Mansion could only be counted as a medium-scale battle. True large-scale battles were still very rare. Subordinate is willing to sweep away all obstacles for your honor. Wei Chang was the first one to shout out loudly and kneel on the ground. Following Wei Chang's shout, everyone shouted out in unison, "Subordinates are willing to go through water and tread on fire for his honor." Yi Hua was very satisfied with his subordinate's attitude and said, "The purpose of this meeting is not to discuss about this battle, but rather, it is to discuss about the outcome of the battle." Brett cupped his hands and said, "Your Honor, subordinate believes that any kind of conspiracy is nothing but a paper tiger in your Honor's eyes." Brett's words were pleasing to the main body's ears. Brett is right. I'm naturally not afraid of those conspiracies. After receiving his Honor's praise, Brett felt a bit more comfortable in his heart. I wonder if Zhu Tian has woken up yet. Yi Hua paused for a moment, then continued, "However, I do not wish to use my strength to suppress the other party. If I were to do so, it would seem like I am bullying the other party." Everyone went into a daze for a moment and soon after they shouted out in unison, "Your Honor is benevolent." Floating battle wasn't used to this kind of rhythm. So this was benevolence. It seemed like he had to redefine benevolence. So, after this small-scale battle, no one knows what will happen. This sovereign is looking forward to it. Right after Yi Hua finished speaking, the subordinates shouted out once more, "To be able to relieve his honor's tiredness, that is a supreme honor." As expected of a group of subordinates who were good at bootlicking. Their words were really crafty. Actually, it wasn't all bootlicking. For the people of the 7 deadly sins, this was a very normal thing. For example, Zishan, Green and Red brothers. They had never come into contact with Zishan in the past, so they mistook Zishan's actions as bootlicking. Although this is only a small-scale battle, it is considered a large-scale battle here. I want to go all out this time to shock the enemy. As soon as they heard that everyone was going to move out, everyone was moved. There was a bloodthirst in their bones. The number of times that his honor requested for the entire army to move out wasn't a lot. The first time was at Ing family and the second time seemed to be against a deity. This might very well be the third time. However, compared to the second time that his honor requested for the entire army to move out, this time's army is quite a bit inferior. However, at the very least, being able to follow his honor and set out together with him made everyone very excited. Subordinates will obey his honor's command. Everyone shouted out and their shouts nearly overturned the roof. The reason why I gathered all of you here is to let you all think about how to line up, how to tell that we are an unstoppable team. Even Yi Hua himself didn't know what to do. I don't want to use those pretentious methods that I used in the past anymore, I want to change my pretentious methods. However, this question stumped everyone because this question was very serious. Since his honor's request was so high, an ordinary plan definitely wouldn't be able to satisfy his honor's request. Furthermore, judging from the pretentious method that his honor used in Heaven's Mansion last time, this time's pretentious method definitely wouldn't be inferior to that time either. Looking at his subordinates remaining silent, Yi Hua asked gravely, "What is it? Do none of you have any good ideas? Do you all have to let me think of ideas every single time? If that is the case, what is the point of having you all?" Everyone turned pale with fright and hurriedly knelt down. Subordinates deserve to die, subordinates are slow-witted. Get up after you have thought it through. Yi Hua said coldly. Other than knowing how to fight, what else do you know? I'm just like taking care of a child. Everyone remained silent. His honor's temper is a bit big. How could Yi Hua's temper not be big? Hugging the most beautiful woman in the world every single day, yet being unable to move, this kind of feeling is very sullen. Whoever hugs me will know. None of Yi Hua's subordinates answered, because even if they answered, his honor wouldn't be satisfied. Therefore, remaining silent was the best choice. At most, I will just get scolded by his honor. Furthermore, with so many people scolding me at the same time, it wouldn't be too shameful. Your Honor, about that. I know. Do Fusher, who was kneeling at the back, suddenly raised his hand and said. Yi Hua signaled Do Fusher to speak. Everyone shook their heads. Young man, you are truly too young, you don't understand his honor at all. Do Fusher was still a bit nervous and he said while trembling with fear, His honor is able to pull out a small stool and sit in front of the army, what kind of aura would that be? When subordinate imagines that scene, I can't help but have the urge to worship his honor. After hearing that, everyone shook their heads. Small stool? Isn't this too degrading? During the last battle of Heaven Court, his honor stepped on Inferno Abyssal Dragon, and this time his honor is actually able to sit on a small stool. Young man, you really don't understand anything. However, after hearing that, Yi Hua sunk into deep thought. Small stool? Yi Hua couldn't help but imagine that kind of scene in his mind. I, the Supreme Overlord, am sitting in front of the army, on the most ordinary small stool, with a cigarette in my mouth, and a pair of eyes coldly staring at the army. Seems like this kind of scene isn't bad. In the past I was already used to being high profile, so this time, getting a small stool is not bad either. Good. Well said. Yi Hua couldn't help but shout out. All of Yi Hua's subordinates had stupefied looks on their faces. They completely don't know what's good about this scene. Hearing his honor's praise, Dou Fusher hurriedly kneeled down and kowtowed to thank his honor. Being able to help his honor solve his problems is our duty as subordinates. All of Yi Hua's subordinates were furious. To actually let a newcomer steal their limelight. Motherfucker. Yun Lang rubbed his paw. In actuality, I wanted to say the same thing just now, just that I wasn't able to speak like a human, that's all. I was afraid that his honor wouldn't be able to understand me, so I decided to keep my opinion to myself. Signed, this husky is rather smart. Yi Hua swept his gaze across all of Yi Hua's subordinates. Look at this Dou Fusher. It's only his first time attending a meeting and he already knows so much. All of you still have to work hard and learn from him. All of Yi Hua's subordinates were a bit envious of Dou Fusher. His honor has never praised anyone like this before, and furthermore he even said that he wants everyone to learn from him. Right now Dou Fusher was a bit giddy. These big shots are going to learn from me? I'm so excited. Chapter 607. This subordinate will bear this in mind. All the subordinates shouted respectfully. Yi Hua nodded his head. Next time don't disappoint me. Yes. With a stern look on his face, Yi Hua returned to Voidless Realm first, leaving behind his subordinates. When Dou Fusher saw that his honor had left just like that, he was a little disappointed. He thought that his honor would look for him alone to talk to him. Right when Yi Hua was fantasizing, he suddenly discovered that there were a lot of gazes that were looking at him, and those were gazes that harbored evil intentions. Lai Gu walked over with a stern face, looked at Dou Fusher and said, "Newcomer, you really don't know the rules." Dou Fusher swallowed his saliva, and when he saw everyone's ferocious gazes he became terrified. "Big brother? I really don't know the rules," Yi Zizi snorted. "You don't know the rules, yet you're talking nonsense." Dou Fusher's scalp went numb. He seemed to have figured out what was going on. "It seems like I have stolen the limelight and I even received his honor's praise, causing these big brothers and big sisters to be jealous. This trick is too deep. I want to go back to the village. Big brother. Big sister. Let me explain." Dou Fusher felt that he still had a chance. Zishan snorted, "Who is your big sister? Am I that old?" Floating world, Dou Fusher could be seen slowly squatting down and saying weakly, "Don't hit my face." Lai Gu snorted coldly, "Everyone attack. Let the newcomer know what the rules are." Dou Fusher's miserable screams rang out in the hall. "As your big brother, I am also teaching you. Endure it a bit more." Death Mage let out a cackling sound. "I will properly learn from you." Zishan's small fist also descended. "I'll learn from you properly." Tang Wei also gave him a small punch. "I also want to learn." Wei Chang also came over and gave a punch. After a long while, Dou Fusher covered his face and said, "You guys didn't keep your word, you said that you wouldn't slap my face." Dou Fusher's face was swollen. It was truly tragic. This was the result of a newbie who didn't know any better. Yun Lang wagged his tail and held his breath. Then he raised his head and walked past arrogantly. "You're also a newcomer, so why do you have to be so high profile? Look at me, Yun Lang. I'm acting like a dog with my tail between my legs." In the end he was still too young. Blood Demon also shook his head and looked at himself. Only by doing things in a down-to-earth manner and behaving honestly would he be able to gain everyone's approval. Randomly showing off would only lead to death. Dou Fusher wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Even a dog had come to mock him. In the future he wouldn't dare to speak carelessly anymore. The farce ended just like that, allowing Dou Fusher to experience the warmth of a team. Look at how low profile the Green and Red brothers were when they first entered the team. Both of them stood at the side and didn't speak at all, and only answered when his honor asked them about it. And for this Dou Fusher to take the initiative to answer his honor's question, it meant that he was flaunting his own brain. This Dou Fusher was the target of everyone's attack. "We all have no brains. What do you need brains for? Quickly dispel your crazy idea." When Yi Hua returned to Voidless Realm, he might not know that his subordinates were currently bullying the newcomer. Walking into the back of the luxurious palace, Donghuang Baiji could be seen teaching her daughter how to write calligraphy, and Yi Yen was also practicing by the side. "Mom, look, it's a picture of a chick pecking rice." Yi Yan took out his masterpiece and showed it to her. Qingye, who was sitting at the table and drinking tea, immediately spat out the tea she was drinking. She widened her eyebrows and said, Yan, I'll let you practice writing. Why are you drawing? Yi Yan pouted. She was a little sad that her work was not praised by her mother. Not bad. Yi Hua walked into the room and said faintly. Yi Yan immediately beamed and shouted with a smile, Daddy. Yi Hua rubbed onto his son's little head. Children at this age must be praised, if not, it would be very easy for them to be discouraged. When Donghuang Baiji saw that her husband had returned, she immediately walked away and sat beside Donghuang Baiji. Mom will bring you two out to play. Qingye naturally knew that. Right now, Qingye brought the two little fellows out and didn't want to disturb them. Hearing that they could finally play, Donghuang Li and Yi Yan were very happy. After all, they are still children, so why wouldn't they want to play? When Qingye passed by Yi Hua, she said in a low voice, You made Baiji angry, coax her properly. Yi Hua was completely confused. When did I provoke the Empress? I don't have any impression at all. However, when he looked at Donghuang Baiji, she seemed to be angry. Yi Hua slowly walked to the side of the Empress and wanted to stroke onto the Empress's beautiful hair. Who knew that Donghuang Baiji would snort, Don't touch me, I'm making you lose face. Right now, Yi Hua finally understood. So it turns out that it was my unintentional words that provoked the Empress. How could you make me lose face? Yi Hua laughed lightly. What's the difference between this Empress and a child? She has the temper of a child. In any case, I have already made you lose face. In the future, you don't have to care about me anymore. The Empress raised her head and had an expression that seemed to say that she wants me to fend for myself. Right now, Yi Hua was quite skilled in coaxing women. He directly carried the angry Empress and sat down on the ground. Afterward, Yi Hua stretched out his hand and hooked onto the Empress's chin, then said faintly, Look at my wife's appearance. Which woman in this world would have such an appearance? Humph, Donghuang Baiji snorted and dodged away. From her tone and actions, it seemed that she had gotten a little better. Baiji, for a woman like you to go and fight anywhere, it would mean that you are giving me face. Yi Hua once again stretched out his hand and stroked onto the Empress's cherry lips. The Empress's cherry lips were very soft. Donghuang Baiji's originally angry face immediately collapsed. Then why did you say that I made you lose face? Donghuang Baiji used her small fists and pounded onto her chest. Yi Hua said gravely, Baiji, you must be decisive when killing. Hesitation isn't like your style. Donghuang Baiji silently nodded her head. Look at your frowning face, you don't look like an empress at all. Isn't this all because I was angered by you? It's all your fault. Alright, blame me. Since her husband had already given in, Donghuang Baiji was no longer angry and snuggled into her husband's embrace. Yi Hua said lightly, I have already arranged everything for this matter. I will deal with it myself so that you won't feel bad about it again. I can do it. Yi Hua's gaze became focused as he shouted out lightly, Alright then. This time, all of us will move out and let everyone experience what I'm capable of. Who dared to provoke my woman? How did they end up? Hearing her husband's bold words, Donghuang Baiji felt as if she had eaten honey. I found a good man. This is great. That's why Yi Hua's change is still very big. In the past he would often scold people and coax his wife, but now look at how good he is at coaxing his wife. A few minutes ago, Donghuang Baiji was still panting with anger, but a few minutes later, tsk. Look at her expression. It seems like she wants to roll on the bed with me, but I won't allow her to do so. If I allow you to scram just because you want to scram, where would my dignity be? Donghuang Baiji, who was in bliss, said tenderly, Hubby, I love you. Chapter 608. Time passed by and very quickly a week passed by. Today was April 28th, the weather was clear, and it was also the day when the Peace Association and Justice Alliance launched their attack. Both sides sent out 150,000 people, and for a total of 300,000 people. Furthermore, they even gave themselves a temporary name, Sky Law. As the name implied, they were here to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Such a scale was unprecedented, and everyone was excited, looking forward to the moment when they trampled on Voidless Realm. Meanwhile, inside Voidless Realm, Yi Hua's underlings all appeared, and even the blood demon who was cleaning the place was present. Of course, Do Fusher was also present. The bruise on his face had yet to disappear, and he stood at the back, not daring to speak anymore. Just now Yi Hua also asked Do Fusher curiously, what happened to his face? How could Do Fusher dare to answer truthfully, and thus said that he fell down? This caused Yihua to laugh lightly. To be able to fall to such a state, Dou Fusher is indeed a talent. After Qingya and Donghuang Baiji greeted Yihua and his underlings, they didn't say anything. It will be fine if they just stand beside their husband later. Donghuang Li and Yi Yan were also standing at the side. The two little fellows were also meticulously dressed up by their mother today, so they mustn't lose face. The two little fellows were already impatient to go on stage, and they looked up at their father's broad back view. Yi Yan was even thinking in his heart, I must definitely become a man like my father in the future. Wait for my order. Yihua shouted out while holding onto a bamboo stool. Yes. Everyone shouted out gravely. After finished speaking, Yihua passed through the barrier with the bamboo stool. Meanwhile, Voidless Realm didn't have any signs of preparing for war, and everyone was still living their lives as usual. Of course, such a big matter still has to be paid attention to. After all, today is the glory that belongs to Voidless Realm. Yihua walked out of the barrier and arrived at the desert outside. He placed the bamboo stool on the ground, then sat down, took out a cigarette and lit it up. Interesting, I have never been so low-key before. It seems like it is quite interesting to be low-key once in a while. Right now, I am just waiting for those people to come over. Meanwhile, at the border of the desert, a large army of 300,000 people had already gathered. The ones leading the army were naturally the two leaders, Bai Cixin and Jiu Yi. In actuality, the two of them knew that those people were here to die, but they still couldn't bear to do so. Ninth Lord, it's getting late, Bai Cixin said in a sweet voice. Jiu Yi nodded his head. This land of yellow sand is currently a forbidden area, and I heard that Voidless Realm is located at the center of the land of yellow sand. We have to cross this land of yellow sand first. Wang Debao laughed and said, no matter how dangerous it is, there are 300,000 people here and they are all moon-class elites. We are not afraid of anyone. Lord Jiu chuckled but did not say anything. There must be a reason why this land of yellow sand was called a forbidden zone. He looked at the 300,000 people behind him. Their aura was soaring to the heavens, and their killing intent was awe-inspiring. In the front row, there were even people carrying Tian Fa's flag. How imposing. Let's go. Lord Jiu shouted. 300,000 people stepped onto this path of no return, and death was quietly descending upon them. However, in their minds, they were only thinking about the treasures within Voidless Realm. In the group there was a familiar figure. That was Wu Li. This time he was even a squad leader in charge of 100 people. It was a disguised promotion. Captain Wu, what kind of treasures do you think are inside Voidless Realm? One of the subordinates at the side asked curiously. Wu Li laughed lightly. Don't worry, if there are any benefits, we will naturally share them with us. That's right, after we get our share of the money, I will buy a villa for my parents and a golden retriever so that they can live a good life. A look of longing appeared on the corner of the subordinate's mouth, and it seemed like he was already fantasizing about his triumphant return. In Wu Li's mind, his mother who had white hair on her temples appeared as well. When I go back to Voidless Realm this time, I will properly accompany my parents and think about the stupid things I did in the past. I will properly apologize to my mother. Just as Wu Li was in deep thought, the yellow sand beneath his feet suddenly moved. A lot of people felt that the yellow sand on the ground was moving. Just as everyone was feeling puzzled. There was a loud bang. A huge blood-red scorpion rushed out from the yellow sand, and in an instant, it swallowed dozens of people. The huge impact sent Wu Li flying, and the subordinate who was fantasizing about buying a big house for his parents was already swallowed by the scorpion. The sudden appearance of the scorpion messed up the entire formation. Bai Cixin had also taken this situation into consideration and she shouted out, "Get ready for battle." 300,000 people took out their weapons in unison, and in the entire formation, dozens of huge scorpions rushed out. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin frowned. It wasn't that they didn't consider this situation, but the number of scorpions was a bit too much. In just an instant, it was estimated that more than 100 people died. Lord Jiu shouted coldly, "What are you all standing there for? Go." As the higher-ups entered the battlefield, the situation quickly stabilized, and it was no longer as messy as before. However, the huge scorpions' defense was extraordinarily terrifying, especially their tails, and with a single sweep, dozens of people would die. There was no other way, the formation was too densely packed. Luckily, there were quite a lot of ancient godly items on both sides, and after the death of more than 10,000 people, they finally killed these dozens of huge scorpions. The huge scorpions' bodies were full of treasures, and their hard outer shell could be used as armor, and their incomparably hard scorpion tail could be used as a top-notch spiritual tool. Although more than 10,000 people died, it still couldn't stop the chaos. The dozens of huge scorpions were all stripped clean, and everyone obtained their first harvest, and they seemed very excited. It was indeed the right choice to form a group and come to this desert, even if more than 10,000 people died in the battle just now. Bai Cixin ordered the team to recuperate, increase their vigilance and continue their journey in 10 minutes. Right now Wu Li was already injured and a deep cut was made on his left arm. Fortunately he had prepared healing medicine and with the help of magic he felt much better. However he, the team leader, no longer had anyone to give orders to. Just now, that huge scorpion appeared at his side and other than himself the other 100 people in the team were all killed. This caused Wu Li's heart to sink. I haven't even seen what Voidless Realm looks like, and more than 10,000 people have already died. And this is merely the first wave. A man could be seen handing out a pen and paper, and everyone was stupefied as they held onto the pen and paper. "What are you doing?" Wu Li asked. The man saw that Wu Li's armband was that of a team leader, and thus he said very respectfully, "Team leader, this is used to write a will." After finished speaking, the man continued handing out the pen and paper. In actuality this was also what Bai Cixin wanted. Even if they were to die they should at least send a will to their family. Wu Li's hand that was covered in blood tightly held onto the white paper, and his hand was trembling a bit. Looking at the people around him, the excitement he had just a moment ago was no longer there. The 10,000 people who died didn't even have the time to write a will. Although they obtained some treasures, the price they paid was too tragic. Wu Li took a deep breath. "It's impossible for me to become a deserter." Picking up the pen, Wu Li began writing on the white paper. Chapter 609. Wu Li wrote down all of the words that he wanted to say, his longing and shame towards his mother. "If there is a next life, I will definitely accompany you by your side." 5 minutes later, the man began to collect the corpses again. However, there were a lot of people who expressed their disdain. "How can I possibly die? What a joke." Wu Li passed his will to the man and said gravely, "I'll be counting on you." The man nodded his head gravely. 10 minutes passed by very quickly, and the huge group began moving forward once again. Due to the lesson that they received just now, they spread out a lot and were not as concentrated as before. However, not even tens of minutes later, a whirlpool suddenly appeared and instantly devoured over 1,000 people. A lot of people were sucked into the whirlpool, and miserable screams could be heard. Those who could fly all flew high up into the sky and looked at the messy group below them. Spread out. Spread out. Facing such a whirlpool there seemed to be nothing they could do. A huge centipede could be seen rushing out from the bottom of the sand. Those densely packed legs made everyone's body shiver, and its long tentacles seemed to be carrying along a strange spiritual energy fluctuation. What the heck? Is this God of Touch? Big brother, what is God of Touch? Have you played Legend of Touch before? You don't even know what God of Touch is. I have never played it before. Boom, 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 waves of spiritual energy fluctuation could be seen coming out from the surroundings once again. Another 2 huge whirlpools could be seen appearing and immediately devouring countless people's lives. 2 centipedes that brought along a terrifying aura burst out from the ground. Furthermore, tens of giant scorpions also appeared at the same time. Everyone subconsciously swallowed their saliva. This is going to be a tough battle. Bai Cixin and Jiu Yi who were in the sky tightly wrinkled their brows. This time we are bringing people to fight against Voidless Realm. And not to fight against these mutated animals. However, if we don't kill these animals, how are we going to reach Voidless Realm's entrance? These monsters seem to be Voidless Realm's guardians, obstructing our path. Fight! Bai Cixin shouted out, and a terrifying pressure flashed across the ancient godly item in her hand as her delicate body charged towards the ground. Jiu Yi let out a breath, then condensed a hammer in his hand. When the hammer appeared, the entire sky darkened for a moment as lightning struck down. Thick lightning gathered on Jiu Yi's hammer, and Jiu Yi's entire body was like a god of lightning as he shouted out loudly. The hammer immediately released a dazzling light, and the huge lightning seemed to be able to penetrate everything in the world. The lightning struck the centipede's body. One could see with the naked eye that the electricity on the centipede's body was destroying it. In an instant, the centipede lost its life and collapsed. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned for a moment before bursts of cheers erupted. As expected of the president of the Peace Association, he was able to kill a centipede in one hit. The morale of the entire team was greatly boosted by Lord Jiu's attack. They attacked without any regard for their lives. Lord Geo could only use this move once. It would be great if he could use it infinitely. Everyone joined the chaotic battle. The remaining 2 centipedes were very tenacious. With every strike, hundreds of people would die. There was also the threat of the giant scorpion beside them. The casualties were disastrous. After an hour of hard work, they finally defeated these mutated animals. However, the losses had increased from 10,000 to 100,000. In just an hour, a total of 100,000 people were lying in the yellow sand. Furthermore, they didn't even get to see what Voidless Realm looked like. But now, Bai Cixin, Wang Debao, and Lord Jiu were all wounded. This place was really too scary. They were basically here to die. The problem was, these heads were not given to Voidless Realm. They were given to these mutated animals. Right now, Wu Li was lying on a pile of sand, and blood was flowing out from his mouth non-stop. Because he was a squad leader, there were paramedics beside him. However, right now both of Wu Li's legs were already gone. The paramedics inspected Wu Li's legs, then shook their heads. There was nothing they could do. Wu Li's injuries were too heavy. Just as the paramedics were preparing to leave and save the others, Wu Li stretched out his hand and grabbed onto one of the paramedics, then said with all of his strength, "Please tell my mother that I have let her down." Wu Li looked at the paramedics. The paramedics tightly wrinkled his brows and nodded his head heavily. Seeing that the paramedics nodded their head, Wu Li seemed to have lost all of his strength. The hand that was grabbing onto the paramedics fell down as well. Wu Li looked towards the sky, and in the sky, his mother's warm smile could be seen. The corner of Wu Li's mouth slightly rose, and he seemed to have returned back to his mother's embrace. The paramedics let out a breath, then stretched out his hand and wiped Wu Li's eyes. However, countless corpses were already lying all around, and the yellow sand had already become a sea of blood. Extremely terrifying. When Lord Jiu and Bai Cixin saw this scene, their hearts felt very heavy. They came here with a mission. If they didn't complete it, Wang Debao held onto the blood-stained longsword tightly and muttered, 110,000. Gone just like that. Lord Jiu and Bai Cixin became silent. All of this was just to frame Voidless Realm. Looking at the entire yellow sand, skeletons were everywhere, and the sight was too horrible to look at. Bai Cixin thought inwardly, is all of this really worth it? Just to frame Voidless Realm with a groundless crime. The remaining 190,000 people were currently collecting the spoils of war. That giant centipede's entire body was filled with treasures. However, there were still some people who were flipping over the corpses, seemingly looking for their brothers or other people. There were even some people who were hugging onto the corpses and wailing loudly. Bai Cixin looked towards the endless yellow sand. Where exactly is this Voidless Realm? Why can't I see it yet? However, right now Yihua was still waiting. He was currently smoking cigarette after cigarette, and the ground was filled with cigarette butts. Why is he still not here yet? Is he still coming or not? I have already waited for more than an hour, and not even a single strand of hair can be seen. However, there is a layer of cigarette butts on the ground. I feel a bit awkward. My wives and subordinates are all waiting for me to come out. Sigh. However, for these 190,000 people to walk all the way to where Yihua was, I reckon that they would still need half a day's time. However, if they were to really walk all the way to where Yihua was, how many of them would really be left? Most probably before they could even see Yihua's face, they would all die in this yellow sand. Lord Jiu and Bai Cixin once again gathered 190,000 people and prepared to set off. However, among them there were already a lot of people who wanted to go back. However, when they thought about what to do if they were to bump into those things on the way back, they would definitely die. Right now there was still a trace of hope for them to advance forward, but if they were to retreat, it would only be a path of death. If they were able to make a new choice, it was reckoned that a lot of people wouldn't have come to this yellow sand. Although treasures were important, their lives were more important. As the army continued to advance forward, everyone raised their vigilance and paid attention to their surroundings. If a whirlpool appeared, they would have to immediately leave. There were also those giant scorpions that suddenly appeared, and there were even more unknown life forms. However, in less than 10 minutes, a situation occurred once again. This kind of situation caused everyone to despair. Chapter 610. This is simply not giving us a way out. The atmosphere of despair spread throughout the entire team. Looking at the gigantic creatures in front of them, a deep sense of powerlessness emerged within the team. Even Lord Jiu and Bai Cixin felt a sense of despair. This boundless land of yellow sand was actually this terrifying. This is something unexpected. And they want to flatten Voidless Realm? We don't even know where Voidless Realm is. This is simply a joke. What should we do? There are so many of them. Everyone in the team revealed out a frightened expression as they muttered. Run? How are we going to run? We are all surrounded. Some martial artists who were capable of flying were no longer able to endure this kind of fear and began flying towards the sky to escape. Many people saw this situation and their morale fell to the lowest point. There are actually people who are escaping. There are at least over 10,000 of them. Even the sky was covered by a patch of darkness. However, right at this moment, the ground seemed to be covered by something, and everyone couldn't help but raise their head to look. Dozens of gigantic vultures covered the entire sky, and with a ferocious aura, the vultures flew towards the 10,000 people. Facing against dozens of vultures, the 10,000 people were instantly annihilated, and almost all of them were swallowed alive by the vultures in the sky. Everyone's expression froze. This is simply a team that is capable of both land, sea, and air. Right now, the control of the sky and ground is completely in the hands of the enemy. Bai Cixin and Jiu Yi were in despair. With their strength, it is impossible for them to charge out of the encirclement. The battle prowess of the dozens of vultures is too terrifying. Thankfully, after the vultures ate over 10,000 people in the sky, they left and didn't plan to join the battle. This made everyone let out a breath of relief. Jiu Yi and Bai Cixin took a look at each other, and both of them seemed to be very helpless. Wife, let's fight. Wang Debao shouted out. Bai Cixin nodded her head and shouted out, Everyone listen up, there is already no way back for us. We can only fight to the end for peace. For justice. Bai Cixin raised the ancient godly item in her hand high up, and the might that was emitted from the ancient godly item made the remaining 180,000 people reveal a gaze filled with fighting spirit. Ancient godly items are good things, they are able to boost morale. Jiu Yi and Wang Debao who were at the side also raised the ancient godly item in their hands, and a majestic spiritual pressure swept across the ground, causing all of the mutated animals in the surroundings to tremble. Kill! Lord Jiu shouted and took the lead to rush out. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin shouted coldly and rushed down without any hesitation. In this situation they couldn't care less. They would bring as many as they could back with them. The battle was on the verge of breaking out, and the rate of casualties was dropping by the second. It was chilling. Meanwhile, outside of Voidless Realm's barrier, Yi Hua had a stern look on his face, and there was already a pile of cigarette butts beneath his feet. This group of people couldn't have gotten lost, right? If you can't even find the entrance of Voidless Realm, then what are you two even coming here for? The people who were standing inside the barrier were curious. It has already been a few hours, even if His Honor were to walk, His Honor should have already arrived, right? Although I am unable to see His Honor's expression, judging from those cigarette butts, His Honor's expression should be very bad. Sister, are those bad guys not coming? Yi Yen tugged at the corner of his sister's clothes. Dong Huangli held onto her little brother's hand. Oh, we should be arriving soon, right? Could it be that they're asleep? Yi Yen gasped and pursed his lips. He was originally very excited, but after waiting for so long, he still did not appear. He even wanted to sleep. Dong Huangli rubbed onto her little brother's head. I don't understand either. All of Yi Hua's subordinates were also a bit gloomy. Just what is going on with this group of people? It can't be that they are preparing to stand His Honor up, right? If that's the case, your guts are rather big. How is this standing up? Those people are currently fighting for their lives. Right now, the battlefield was already too horrible to look at. The number of people that were killed had directly dropped to 100,000. It had only been a few hours, and yet 200,000 people had already disappeared. This was a heavy blow that caused everyone to be unable to breathe. Furthermore, right now the battle had yet to stop, and the number of people that were killed was still continuously rising. These mutated beasts are truly terrifying. Another hour passed by, and the scene was already unbearable to look at. Out of the originally majestic army, only a measly 30,000 people remained. All of the others had died in battle. What kind of concept was this? 270,000 people were to be left behind in this land of yellow sand forever. The remaining 30,000 people stood blankly on the spot, and there weren't even a few that went to collect the spoils of war, because they didn't even know if they would be able to return or not. Jiu Yi, Bai Cixin, and Wang Debao were already heavily injured, and they were currently gasping for breath. If there was no rescue, right now, even they probably wouldn't be able to escape. Jiu Yi sat paralyzed on a pile of bloody sand, gasping for breath with a heavy gaze. Wang Debao was currently bandaging his wife's wounds. Looking at the wounds on her delicate skin, he felt a pang in his heart. Bai Cixin also bandaged her husband's wounds and she said in a low voice, Debeo, maybe I should have listened to you before and not participated in this conflict. Wang Debeo was stunned for a moment, then he immediately smiled and said, Honey, listen to what you said. Whatever you do, I will support you. Debeo, thank you. All these years you've taken a lot of blame for me. As your wife, I'm really not responsible. Wang Debeo gently hugged his wife. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. We won't die. Debeo, if we can survive, let's have children, Bai Cixin said softly as she nestled in her husband's arms. After going through so many things, she finally realized that it was a blessing to be able to talk peacefully. Wang Debeo was overjoyed. After being married for so many years, Bai Cixin had never wanted children, because the birth of a child would disrupt her rhythm of becoming stronger. However, after hearing his wife's words, he was instantly excited. Okay, when this is over, we'll go home and have children. People would sigh with emotion, especially when their lives were in danger. Some things would be too late for regrets. However, if they survived a disaster, they might be able to comprehend it, but they might also be the same as before. What he said now was just some yearning. Let's return. Jiuyi, who was at the side, said gravely. The remaining 30,000 people were basically unable to do anything, let alone trample on Voidless Realm. All of them were trampled by those mutated animals. Bai Cixin and Wang Debeo did not object. It was meaningless for them to continue advancing now. They would only be wiped out. Lord Jiu stood up and shouted, Retreat! The 30,000 people were taken aback for a moment before they let out an excited roar. It was as if they had won a battle and could finally retreat. They would never come back again. They would never come back to this godforsaken place even if they were beaten to death. The 30,000 people once again harvested the corpses of the mutated animals. They were excited at the thought that they could all be sold for money when they returned. Damn it, I can't even fit it in anymore. However, just as everyone was retreating, there was a sudden movement in the sky. Chapter 6:11. Everyone was attracted by the white light and didn't notice that their boss had disappeared. What is this thing? It can't be another terrifying monster, right? It doesn't seem like it. I feel like there is a figure inside. Human? Everyone exchanged words with each other. However, everyone took out the weapons in their hands in case something unexpected happened. After all, they were already terrified. When the white light disappeared, the 30,000 men gulped and their eyes were filled with amazement. Standing on the sand dune was a woman. This woman was wearing a white robe, and her long hair hung down to her shoulders. Her eyebrows were like the crescent moon, and her eyes were like cold stars. On her forehead, there was a plum blossom mark, which added to her cold and elegant aura. Her face alone was already extremely beautiful. Not to mention her arrogant figure, it was enough to make people drool. Everyone seemed to have forgotten about the previous battle as they stared at the woman who had suddenly appeared. The aura she exuded was like that of a high and mighty fairy. Li Hun clenched her fists and slowly closed her eyes. In his heart he muttered, is this a rebirth? Seems like I have really revived. Heart of loyalty. Qinjing. You two bastards actually joined hands to kill me. I will settle this score with you slowly. Dan Xen, I was blind to fall in love with you. Bastard. Everyone realized that there was something wrong with this woman's aura. The entire surface of the sand was shaking, and a terrifying resentment was emitted from the woman's body. Li Hun abruptly opened her bloodshot eyes and shouted, Not a single man is a good man. Go to hell. Soul receding Soul raised his hands, and a terrifying spirit pressure appeared in his palms. Thousand crimson smoke. The red spiritual energy condensed in his palms immediately pounced toward the 30,000 people present. Everyone cursed out loud. Why did women like to say this? Who the F***ck provoked you? Who should you go and find? Smells so good. It's quite fragrant. Feels like Chanel No. 5. A strange fragrance drifted among the 30,000 people. Everyone's eyes became dazed and even intoxicated. Holy shit. The giant scorpion is here again. Centipede. Centipede. Serpent. **ck. The 30,000 players immediately started attacking each other. In their eyes, their opponents were those terrifying mutated animals. This was somewhat similar to Absolute Heaven's hypnosis. However, Soul Detachment's hypnosis was not hypnosis. It was an illusion. Looking at the 30,000 men gradually falling at her feet, Soul leaving Soul felt refreshed both physically and mentally, and her delicate body disappeared on the spot. A light breeze blew past and 300,000 Sky Wrath disappeared just like that. Even the last 30,000 Sky Wrath had fallen. As the wind howled, the corpses were gradually covered or eaten by animals that rushed over. Everything returned to normal as if nothing had happened. However, the cigarette butts beneath Yi Hua's feet were already piled up. In the end, Donghuang Baiji still walked out and said tenderly, "Yi Hua, don't wait anymore, I reckon that he won't be coming." Yi Hua was angered to the point that the hand that was holding the cigarette was trembling. "I have even thought of my lines and you guys actually stood me up. Motherf asterisk her. You are making fun of me." In actuality, Yi Hua didn't intentionally go and feel the spiritual energy fluctuation, and was just waiting leisurely, not knowing what was going on. "Lai Gu. Let's go and take a look at where those people are." Yi Hua threw away the cigarette butt in his hand and said anxiously. Lai Gu stepped out of the barrier, seemingly wanting to change back to his original form. Seeing Lai Gu's action, Wei Chang immediately knew what Lai Gu wanted to do and coughed hurriedly. Lai Gu nearly forgot that his honor's wife had seen my original form before. If I were to reveal my original form right now, his honor would definitely stew me. In actuality, Lai Gu was just trying to act cool earlier, and something almost happened to him. This isn't something that can be solved by kneeling on a keyboard. Lai Gu disappeared on the spot and not long later he returned. Standing in front of Yi Hua, Lai Gu said respectfully, "Your Honor, they are all dead." "Yi Hua, Motherf asterisk Kerr. Didn't we agree to attack Voidless Realm? All of them actually died on the way here. Do you guys even have any sincerity?" Sure enough, humans are a bunch of untrustworthy people, causing me to sit here foolishly for a few hours, and even smoked a few packs of cigarettes. Yi Hua slowly stood up, patted off the cigarette ash on his body, then walked into the barrier. While looking at his subordinates, he said gravely, "Whose F** king idea was this? To make me sit outside and get blown by the wind for a few hours?" Qingya said helplessly, "Yi Hua, don't curse in front of a child." All of Yi Hua's subordinates immediately pointed their fingers at Do Fushi. Do Fushi had a stupefied look on his face. "Why is it my fault again?" Yi Hua said gravely, "Seems like newbies need to be taught properly." All of Do Fushi's subordinates revealed out an evil smile, then shouted out, "Subordinate obeys." Do Fushi felt as if he was struck by lightning. "Your Honor, just a few days ago you said that I did a good job and the suggestion that you gave me was great. Why did it become like this?" "It really isn't my fault, Your Honor, save me." Yi Hua brought along his wife and son and left. With a sinister smile on his face, Lai Gu looked at Do Fushi and said, "Do Fushi, this is the result of being in the limelight." Yi Zizi pouted her mouth, sighing, "This should be the result of recklessly coming up with ideas. It's fine if Your Honor is satisfied, if not, then you're finished." Brett laughed lightly. "It seems like my mood has become much better recently, if not, I wouldn't be laughing." Zishan smiled sweetly, "Fushi, little friend, a loose tongue causes trouble, you have to be more careful in the future." Only now did Do Fushi understand a principle. If his honor asks a question, if you don't have 100% confidence in answering, don't ever answer. If not, you will be out of luck. His honor is simply temperamental. "Big brother, big sister, be gentler, don't hit my face, I still haven't recovered from the last time." Do Fushi obediently held onto his head and squatted down. Sun Fang laughed lightly, "Just because you called me big sister, I'll just pat your head." This time Do Fushi learned his lesson. Last time he called me big brother and big sister, but now he called me big brother and big sister. Being in this team is like training one's mind. Yun Lang raised his arrogant head, seemingly saying, "You are truly too young, you dare to say anything." After this incident, Do Fushi no longer dared to recklessly bring up any suggestions. "When I patted Colonel Jin's head, I actually got lightly brushed by Erha's tail. Damn it, sooner or later, I will stew you into a bowl of dog meat soup and let you show off." Right now in Wang Debao's villa. The three people who disappeared were currently sitting on the sofa and eating instant noodles while looking at If You Are the One with a smile on the corner of their mouths, as if they didn't care about anything at all. After drinking the soup, Qing Chindi placed down the instant noodles in his hand, then took out a napkin and wiped his mouth, then said, "We are in the same group, there's no need to be restrained." "In the same group?" Bai Cixin asked confusedly. Jiu Yi knew about it, which was why he didn't say anything. Chapter 612. Bai Cixin thought that the Peace Association was a competitor, but she didn't expect that the Peace Association was just a chess piece in Qing Tian's hands. "Big brother Qing, why did you suddenly pull us back?" Wang Debao asked curiously. "Oh, a very powerful person came. If I didn't pull you guys back, you guys would probably die." Qing Tian folded the tissue and threw it into the trash can. Bai Cixin said confusedly, A powerful person. It's what I said last time. Qing Tian laughed lightly. Bai Cixin and Wang Debao turned pale with fright. Qing Tian did say that last time, but he also said that he was joking. How did it become real? Looking at the shocked look on everyone's faces, Qing Tian said faintly, "You guys have completed the mission well this time, just say that Voidless Realm took those 300,000 heads. In any case, there are no survivors, you guys can say whatever you want." The corner of Jiu Ye's mouth twitched. What a vicious person, making something out of nothing. Bai Cixin became silent, because she originally wanted to live a good life with her husband after this matter is over. Wang Debao was also waiting for his wife's decision. As long as his wife says to withdraw, he will definitely not turn back. But right now, Bai Cixin was worried about Qing Tian. This temperamental man, I know too much about her and her husband, so how could he possibly let us go? It is normal for him to kill us to silence us. Then what should we do next? Bai Cixin let out a sigh of relief and asked. Wang Debao, who was at the side, revealed a disappointed look. My wife is still not willing to let go. Is power really that tempting? This time, Wang Debao misunderstood his wife. Bai Cixin didn't want her and her husband to be silenced. Qing Tian leaned on the sofa and laughed. You guys just have to send out the news, you don't have to worry about anything else. Yes. Jiu Yi replied respectfully. Yes. Bai Cixin could only agree, and Wang Debao nodded his head. Since my wife has made a decision again, I have to help her too. Within Voidless Realm, the two little fellows were originally unhappy, but they quickly recovered and continued to play. However, as a supreme overlord, Yi Hua was unable to recover from his shock. Originally, today was supposed to be a good day, everything had already been arranged, and all that was left was to wait for the actors to come onto the stage. Who would have known that all of them would die on the way here? They are truly too weak. Hubby, it's alright, don't be angry anymore. Qingya placed her hands onto her husband's shoulders and lightly massaged them. The Empress even sat at the side and peeled fruits for Yi Hua. The Empress looked just like she was coaxing a child. However, being served by the most beautiful woman in the world, Yi Hua felt slightly better. As expected, a woman's tenderness is the best thing to put out the fire. Looking at the gloomy expression on her husband's face, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji really wanted to laugh. Last night they were still discussing their lines. They had even thought of the poses they should take. In the end, they were stood up today. How could they not be angry? Yi Hua, do you think that they will pin the crime on Voidless Realm? Donghuang Baiji peeled off the skin of the grape, then brought it to her husband's mouth. Yi Hua enjoyed the Empress's service and said gravely, "Of course I will." Just thinking about it made him feel uncomfortable. If he was the one who killed them, he definitely wouldn't say anything. But now they were all dead before they could even reach him. He didn't even have the chance to act cool. Feeling that the other party had turned the tables, he was very unhappy. Thinking about how he had been sitting outside in the wind for a few hours, his mood became even worse. Then what is the purpose of them doing this? Donghuang Baiji asked curiously. However, in her heart she wasn't too worried. My husband is so formidable, I only have to stand at the side and shout 666, then put on a look of worship. Don't men like their women to be like this? Then I will just satisfy my husband. What else can it be? To make Voidless Realm the public enemy of the entire world. Qingya said eerily, and a cold flash could be seen flashing past her eyes. Voidless Realm is truly a group of people who harbor evil intentions. Become the public enemy of the entire world? Yi Hua didn't think of this point. If I really become the public enemy of the entire world, wouldn't there be even more people coming to die? I feel that Qingya's idea is pretty good. Then, let's just become the public enemy of the entire world. Let's gather tens of millions of people to come to Voidless Realm. These people are too bad, Donghuang Baiji shouted out. Yi Hua took a glance, then said, and they are too bad. Hubby, do you have any good ideas? Donghuang Baiji asked coquettishly. With such a powerful man protecting her, Donghuang Baiji naturally had to appear weak and frail so that her husband's vanity would soar. Yi Hua still didn't know that as long as they had a request, they would say husband to the left and husband to the right, and if they didn't have a request they would call him Yi Hua. Yi Hua. Yes. Yi Hua said calmly, seeming as if everything was within his grasp, and he had an appearance of having the entire world in his hands. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji listened attentively. We just have to wait, the conspiracy will naturally appear. Yi Hua didn't want to take the initiative to attack. If he did that, he would seem very brainless. Are we going to wait for others to come up to us? Donghuang Baiji felt that her husband only wanted to show off, and he didn't care about anything else. Qingye understood Yihua very well. By remaining silent, Qingye could also be considered as supporting Yihua in disguise. Yihua said in a low voice, "No matter how big a conspiracy is, there will come a day where it will be exposed. Aren't the two of you curious?" That's right, this curiosity can only be filled with lives. In order to frame Voidless Realm, God raising heaven and earth used 300,000 lives. In actuality, in Yihua's eyes, this number of lives wasn't anything. In the past he had seen people who were even more inhumane. There were even people who used the lives of millions of people to create weapons. Would Qingye and Donghuang Baiji still dare to resist Yihua? It was obviously impossible. In this family, Yihua's words were the law. However, on the second day, a ferocious storm immediately engulfed the entire world. This was a public criticism conference. And that was, Voidless Realm cruelly killed 300,000 people. Their methods were extremely ferocious. In the past, it was always kept a secret, and only the people within the circle of power would know about it. However, this time it was directly made public. In fact, a lot of people didn't even know what Voidless Realm was, and yet they actually killed 300,000 people. This is too ferocious, right? The ignorant onlookers immediately pinned a big hat onto Voidless Realm. With just a crusade on the internet, such a ferocious place should have been burned down. However, this wasn't the end of targeting Voidless Realm. Among them, Voidless Realm's rule was exposed. Things like exterminating entire families at the drop of a hat, entrapping people at the drop of a hat. In any case, all of the bad things that happened in Voidless Realm were all reported. As for the good things that happened in Voidless Realm, there was even a photo of the Empress on the front page of every big news. This was the first time that the Empress's appearance was revealed to the public, and in an instant she captured the hearts of countless men. She was too beautiful, she was simply too beautiful. Chapter 6:13. But could such a beautiful woman be that kind of executioner? All the men expressed their doubts. However, it was unknown who had actually released the video of the North-South martial arts competition, and it had even been edited to show the cruel side of the Empress to the world. Seeing the Empress order the execution of those who begged for mercy, everyone's hearts were filled with terror. Of course, there was also indignation. How could a woman have so much power? Who gave it to her? However, there were also a great many youths who were attracted by the Empress's cold figure. This was the true aloof goddess who would kill hundreds of people at the drop of a hat. In fact, she had even slaughtered hundreds of thousands. Too domineering. Of course, this was only the minority. Most of the people were calling to boycott Voidless Realm, and there were even some people who were shouting, "Get out of Voidless Realm." This trend was becoming more and more intense, to the point where Voidless Realm wanted to organize their people to attack Voidless Realm once again. When Voidless Realm heard that Voidless Realm was going to attack Voidless Realm quickly come out and surrender. A slogan of, "Down with Voidless Realm," swept through the entire Voidless Realm. I have never heard of such an exceedingly ferocious organization before. Killing 300,000 people in one go. Oh my god. In ancient times, it was normal for two armies to clash, but times were different. 300,000 was a huge number of people. Right now, inside Voidless Realm, Yihua was currently holding onto his tablet and looking at his wife's figure. A feeling of vanity was currently lingering in his heart. "This is my woman, the woman who acts like a spoiled child in my arms every day, you bunch of idiots." Qingye and Donghuang Baiji were also looking at the news report, and they were angered to the point that their faces were red. As the saying goes, good things don't go out the door, but outside news travels 1,000 miles. "Baiji, this cover photo is not bad. It's beautiful. Too beautiful. I, the Supreme Overlord, am truly too happy." Yihua actually laughed out loud, and at this very moment he wished that he could place the Empress on the bed and roll around with her. Donghuang Baiji rolled her eyes at her husband. Why is he still thinking about these things at a time like this? Yihua said with a smile, "Look at this posture of giving the order, this expression of yours, you are really giving me face. Baiji, well done. Very good. Alright, this seems to be the first time that Yihua is praising his wife, and furthermore, it is an important praise." Qingye expressed that she was unhappy. "Why aren't you praising me? We are both your wives, aren't you being too biased?" However, Qingye was thinking in her heart, in the future, I will also do something to make my husband praise me, and make my husband feel proud of me. Perhaps Yihua didn't know that by praising the Empress, he had allowed Qingye to walk down the path of being praised. Perhaps Donghuang Baiji was infected by Yihua. Donghuang Baiji looked at her own photo, then held onto her face and said, "So ugly?" Qingye poked onto the Empress's forehead and said with a smile, If you are ugly, how am I supposed to live? Jingya, you are much prettier than me. How is she beautiful? Look at our husband. He loves your cold and arrogant look. Really? Why do I feel that my husband likes your gentle look? Yi Hua squinted his eyes and took a look. Woman, hee. Sure enough, they all had the heart to compare. Yi Hua took a look at the news report and felt that it was pretty good. Scolding is everywhere. This feels great. I'm very happy. I just don't know if they dare to make a move. Should I help them? This question. Seeing that her husband was in deep thought, the two women asked curiously, Yi Hua, what are you thinking about? Nothing much. Right now we have already become the target of a crusade. Sigh. Donghuang Baiji let out a light sigh. Originally, Voidless Realm's existence was to protect the North, but in the end they were framed to such a state. It would be a lie if you say that it isn't painful. If father were to find out about this, he would definitely jump up and beat me up. Thinking back to the past, ever since Voidless Realm and Yi Hua buried the hatchet, Voidless Realm began to fall, and I also fell along with it. This bad man, he only knows how to lead his wife astray to the point that even I like to act cool now. Look at this cover, it is so cool. As expected, I won't let my husband lose face. Jingya was a bit envious. I have to think of a way to become famous as well. How can I become famous? Yi Hua laughed lightly. This can also be considered to be entering the international stage, although this reputation isn't that good. Then, are we still going to sit here and wait? Jingya asked curiously. Could it be that your majesty still wants to take the initiative to attack? Or are you trying to wash away the suspicion? No matter how you explain yourself now, it will be useless. You can be considered to be wearing the cruel hat. Yi Hua said lightly. In actuality, this is also good. No one wants to be the bad guy. I, the Supreme Overlord, don't mind being the bad guy. Donghuang Baiji was just saying it. She naturally understood the logic behind it. You two continue chatting. I will go back and take a look at Ju Tian. After finished speaking, Yi Hua disappeared. This is truly convenient. I saved quite a bit of money on the bus fare. The poorest Supreme Overlord in history. Returning back to Leisure Bar, Yi Hua walked into Yu Tong's room. Yi Zizi was eating chicken every day, and Ju Tian was still lying in Yi Zizi's embrace. Is Ju Tian feeling a bit better? Yi Hua sat on his sister-in-law's bed and asked. Your Honor, wait a moment, the final circle is about to begin. Yi Hua shook his head. Right now Yi Zizi's gaming addiction is quite big. Originally, Yi Zizi was about to finish eating chicken every day, but for some reason her head was shot by an AWM. Even Yi Zizi herself was stupefied. I was actually killed by a sniper. Yi Zizi hurriedly switched to death replay. I was actually killed at such a far distance. Fuck, he is definitely a cheater. Pouting her small mouth, Yi Zizi conveniently pinched Ju Tian's ear to vent her anger. Ju Tian, who had fainted for so long, had already been pinched by Yi Zizi. This fellow's injuries are more or less healed and he should be waking up soon. However, it might take a very long time for him to recover his strength. Yi Zizi said with a grin while pinching onto Ju Tian's neck. Meanwhile, Ju Tian was currently like a dead cat. His four limbs were powerless. Give him to me. Yi Hua took the opportunity to pinch onto Ju Tian's neck. He decided to return Ju Tian to them so that Brett wouldn't come over to ask about the situation from time to time. Pinching onto Ju Tian's neck, Yi Hua arrived at Dongfang family. There was actually no one in the main hall. Sensing Brett's aura, Yi Hua reckoned that Brett should be in the backyard. When Yi Hua arrived at the backyard, he went into a slight daze. Dongfang Yuan'er and Guan Yanxing could be seen carefully teaching Brett how to prune branches, and Brett was also very serious. To think that Brett would actually have such a moment, the power of love is truly great. Cough. Yi Hua coughed lightly. The three beautiful women were startled for a moment, and soon after they shouted out respectfully, Your Honor. Get. Yi Hua tossed Ju Tian. The pitiful Ju Tian drew an arc in the air, and Brett hurriedly hugged onto Ju Tian and shouted out coquettishly, Your Honor. Ju Tian, who was in a coma, would often be tossed around by people, and in the future he would be in an even more miserable state. Chapter 6:14. After Yi Hua left, Dongfang Yuan'er, who was at the side, asked curiously, This? Brett stroked Absolute Heaven's fur and said with a light smile, This is Absolute Heaven. Guan Yanxing cried out in surprise. They had never seen Ju Tian's original body before. She never thought that the man she liked was actually a cute kitten. So cute. Dongfang Yuan'er did not feel anything at all. There were even skeletons in the team. Compared to them, Absolute Heaven was much more adorable. Brett also smiled sweetly and said, Yeah, I've never hugged him before. So obedient. I want a hug too, Guan Yinxin said from the side. Zhu Tian usually had a cold expression on his face, causing Guan Yinxin to not dare to tease him. Now she finally had the chance to bully him. Brett was much more magnanimous now, and he passed the cat version of absolute heaven to Guan Yinxin. Guan Yinxin hugged it in her arms and exclaimed that it was so cute. As for absolute heaven waking up at that time, that would be truly despairing. He would be abused by these three women. Yi Hua returned back to Leisure Bar once again, and was preparing to make a Chinese jianbing to eat. However, when he walked to the entrance of the alley, he didn't see the auntie selling jianbing and suddenly he thought of something. Could it be that Wu Li had gone? You didn't listen to my advice? Standing at the entrance of the alleyway, Yi Hua let out a breath. If this Wu Li really left, I reckon that he wouldn't be able to come back. As for aunties? Perhaps I won't be able to eat that hot fruit pancake anymore. At this time, the auntie was still waiting for her child to come home. She had been away for a few days and logically speaking, she should be back soon. In order to wait for her son to come back, the aunt didn't go to set up her stall for the past few days. However, the more she waited, the more anxious she felt. As the days passed by, the old lady also saw the news. Voidless Realm had actually massacred 300,000 people. Although I don't know what Voidless Realm is, I recognize the woman who appeared on the television. Isn't that young man's wife? He had even bought some pancakes from his stall. The middle-aged woman did not think that this woman was a heinous person. She wondered if the report was wrong. After seeing that so many people had died, the big aunt also felt that the world had changed and it didn't seem like a complete world anymore. It was too cruel. Ding dong. Ding dong. Suddenly the doorbell rang. The auntie paused and a smile appeared on her face. It seemed that her son had returned. This isn't right. My son should have the key, why would he press the doorbell? The middle-aged woman walked to the door, still very vigilant. Who is it? Standing outside was the man who had received the suicide note back then. It had been a few days since he had delivered it. This feeling was really not good, especially when he saw the lifeless eyes of the other party's family members. Moreover, this family was the family of a squad leader. I'm here to deliver a letter, the man shouted from outside. The auntie was even more confused. Were there still people delivering letters in this day and age? Could he be a swindler? That's why he wouldn't open the door. Leave or I'll call the police. The middle-aged woman shouted. Auntie, it's your son's letter, the man shouted again. The middle-aged woman didn't believe it. Her son had never sent a letter. My son will call me if he needs anything. The man let out a light sigh. I can't bear to say that this is a will, but at the very least I have to hand this will over to the other party. Auntie, this is your son's will. A will. The middle-aged woman was shocked. She didn't care if the man was a scammer or not. She opened the door and said, What did you say? How could my son write a will? The man first bowed to the middle-aged woman, then handed over the letter with both of his hands. Auntie, my condolences. The middle-aged woman's gaze stared fixedly at the pure white envelope. She stretched out her trembling right hand, and a bad premonition emerged from the bottom of her heart. Auntie, Captain Wu sacrificed himself for peace and justice, please? The man said gravely, but he wasn't able to finish what he wanted to say. The middle-aged woman didn't hear what the man said at all. Her trembling hand tore open the envelope, took out the letter inside and slowly opened it. At the bottom left corner of the letter, there was even a blood stain. Dear mother, if you read this letter, it means that your son is no longer able to fulfill his filial duties. I'm sorry. When the middle-aged woman saw this line of words, the middle-aged woman felt that the world was spinning, and the man hurriedly held on to her. The middle-aged woman sat on the ground paralyzed. Looking at the words that her son wrote, her tears wetted the letter one by one. When the middle-aged woman finished reading the letter, a mournful wail suddenly broke out. Son. My son, why did you leave your mother alone? The middle-aged woman shouted in pain as she pounded on her chest. The man took a deep breath and squatted down. Auntie, I'm sorry. The middle-aged woman grabbed onto the man's shoulder and shouted out miserably, Tell me, how did my son die? I beg you to tell me. Auntie, you should have seen the report on the news. Captain Wu is inside the report. Captain Wu sacrificed himself for the sake of righteousness. Auntie, you should be proud of your son. No. I don't want to be proud, I only want my son back. Return my son back to me. The middle-aged woman was completely confused as she shook the man with all of her might. Towards this kind of situation, the man had encountered it before, and thus, he comforted the middle-aged woman properly. Auntie, quickly enter the house. The middle-aged woman shouted out while crying, That is my son's corpse. Where is his corpse? I'm sorry, everyone's corpse was buried in that desert. After finished speaking, the man turned around and left. At the moment when the elevator door closed, the man heard even more miserable wails coming from outside. Perhaps Yihua still didn't know about this matter, but back then he also advised Wu Li to just properly accompany the middle-aged woman and not think about other things. Unfortunately, between happiness and despair, Wu Li still chose despair, and left his old mother alone. On this day, Yihua was currently teaching his son how to wield a sword. The little fellow Yi Yan had also grown a bit taller, and the sword that he was holding onto was even longer than him. Hold on to the sword firmly. Yihua shouted out gravely. Yi Yan's gaze was very firm. Even though his hands were trembling, he was still holding onto the sword's hilt tightly. Dong Huangli, who was at the side, appeared very calm, looking as if she had been abused by her mother. Yihua took a sip of tea, his gaze was calm, and he had the appearance of a strict father. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji sat at the side and began learning how to knit a sweater. From time to time they would turn around and look at their child, and a smile could be seen on the corner of their mouth. This kind of life sure is warm. Right at this moment, Yihua received Wei Chang's voice transmission. After hearing it, Yihua's brows wrinkled. Auntie actually came to the bar. This has never happened before in the past. Could it be that? Yihua, what's the matter? Qingya and Donghuang Baiji felt the change in their husband. After all, it was very rare for Yihua to frown, and as long as he frowned, it would be a big matter for him. Thus the two women became confused. Yihua took a deep breath. Auntie came to the bar. Auntie? Is it the auntie who sells crepes at the alley entrance? Qingya asked tenderly. Chapter 6:15. Auntie, what are you doing at leisure bar? What's the matter? Donghuang Baiji asked curiously. Yihua let out a light sigh, then looked at Donghuang Baiji and said, Auntie's son is most likely among the 300,000 people, and Auntie has also seen you before. With that, the two girls understood that the auntie was here to settle the score. In actuality, I had already tried to persuade her son, but unfortunately, her son still chose a path of no return. Donghuang Baiji felt that she should go and explain to Donghuang Baiji that she and the others did not kill her son at all. Yihua, I will go with you to explain. Yihua said faintly, no need, I can go by myself. Yihua felt that it was useless to explain too much. If there was a cause, there would be an effect. This was a fact that could not be changed. I, the Supreme Overlord, am not a good person. I am already doing my best to persuade my beloved wife to explain such a thing to me. With a heavy heart, Yihua arrived at Leisure Bar, and Blood Demon was currently waiting respectfully for him. Your Honor. Where is he? Yihua asked. Blood Demon lowered his head and said, stand outside. Stand? Why didn't you let her in? How long has it been? Yihua's tone sank. Right now it was currently a thunderstorm. The Blood Demon didn't understand why his honor was angry, but he still lowered his head and said, it has been 2 days. 2 days? Why didn't you inform me earlier? Yihua hurriedly walked out. To Yihua, this ant was the first human that dared to scold him. Of course, she was also the first human that Yihua didn't want to kill, and also the first human that Yihua got to know. The Blood Demon had a terrified look on his face. His honor actually got angry because of a human? How is this possible? Yihua walked to the entrance of Leisure Bar, and sure enough, he saw that familiar figure that was currently being drenched by the heavy rain. Yihua materialized an umbrella in his hand and walked forward. With a wave of his hand, the ant's clothes that were originally wet became warm. Why aren't you coming in? Yihua asked gravely. The middle-aged woman looked up at the unfamiliar young man, her eyes devoid of any anger. Only after a long while did he finally ask. His voice was extremely hoarse. Can you return my son's corpse to me? Looking at the expectant gaze of the auntie as well as the look of despair on her face, for the first time, Yihua had a different feeling. The face of despair wasn't that beautiful anymore. It had already been a few years since Yihua got to know the auntie, and what Yihua saw the most was the amiable smile on the auntie's face. Even when the auntie was scolding Yihua, the auntie's smile was still that kind of gentle. That kind of gentleness would probably never be seen again. Seeing that Yihua wasn't speaking, the auntie immediately kneeled down in front of Yihua and begged, I beg of you. Towards humans kowtowing to him, Yihua had always felt very comfortable in his heart. However, at this moment Yihua was extremely displeased, and an evil aura gushed out from his chest. A desolate scene froze in front of them. A woman was kneeling in front of a young man with her head lowered. The sky was still pouring and it was getting heavier and heavier. It landed on the ground with a rustling sound. Yi Hua tightened his grip on the umbrella and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry." This was Yi Hua's first time apologizing to a human, and this was also Yi Hua's last time apologizing to a human. The rainstorm was still continuing and the auntie slowly stood up. Without taking another look at Yi Hua, the auntie turned around and walked towards the entrance of the alleyway, and the clothes that she was wearing were instantly drenched by the rainstorm. At this moment, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji also jogged out of the house. The two of them leaned against Yi Hua's side and looked at that lonely and desolate back view of Yi Hua, all the way until Yi Hua disappeared from their sight. The pain of losing her son caused the auntie to lose her motivation to live. Yi Hua stood there for a very long time, and Qingya and Donghuang Baiji also accompanied the auntie for a very long time. The two of them were able to sense the emotions that their husband was currently feeling, and they knew that his mood was definitely not good. "Let's go in." After a long time, Yi Hua said unhurriedly. After walking into the bar, Yi Hua sat beside the bar counter, and Blood Demon hurriedly poured a cup of wine for Yi Hua. Yi Hua had always been a person who took small sips of wine, but today he took a sip of wine. However, all of this was because of a human auntie. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji sat beside their husband and accompanied him attentively. Yi Hua let out a breath, then said while wrinkling his brows, "This auntie is the first person who dares to reprimand me. No, there are a lot of people who reprimand me, but all of them are dead. This auntie is the only one who made me." Speaking up to here, a ray of red light flashed past Yi Hua's eyes. Who am I to blame for all of this? Peace Association? Justice Alliance? Or Wu Li himself? Or even me? Hearing this, Blood Demon was also extremely shocked. That auntie actually dares to reprimand his honor. That auntie is actually still alive. That auntie actually dares to reprimand his honor. Yi Hua laughed lightly. However, this laughter contained a bit of self-mockery. "The crepes that this auntie makes is the most fragrant that I have ever eaten. And she is also rather stingy. Every time she would still charge me money. Doesn't she know that me eating at your place is already giving me a lot of face? And she actually still dares to charge me money." Yi Hua smiled and drank another mouthful of wine. Only now did Qingya and Donghuang Baiji realize that the position of auntie in their husband's heart was actually quite high. This was for sure. If not, why would Yi Hua help a human to teach his son a lesson, and even advise the human not to send his son to die? Xanba listened to Xanba's advice, but that Wu Li didn't. After drinking a few cups of wine, Yi Hua took a deep breath and said, "This aunt is my first friend and she might also be my last friend." After finished speaking, Yi Hua stood up and walked towards the stairs. "I need to take a nap." Blood Demon lowered his head and remained silent. So his honor is still so emotional. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji understood their husband even more deeply. So Yi Hua actually has such a side to him. I really didn't expect this. The two women followed Yi Hua upstairs, opened the bedroom door, and saw that Yi Hua was already lying on the bed. The two women didn't feel embarrassed. They took off their clothes, snuggled into their husband's embrace and comforted him. That night Yi Hua had a dream. In the dream, the auntie was still selling crepes at the entrance of the alleyway, and the auntie's face that was filled with wrinkles still had that same smile on it, and that auntie was looking at him. The next morning, the rainstorm outside had already stopped, and the sound of raindrops could still be heard coming from the eaves of the house. Yi Hua opened his eyes and returned back to his usual demeanor, then lightly hugged onto his two wives. After hearing that, Yi Hua let out a light chuckle. Two snorts. "Hubby, why don't you sleep for a while longer?" Qingya asked tenderly. "That's right, you woke up so early." Donghuang Baiji asked lightly with her beautiful eyes closed. Yi Hua said faintly, "I woke up to buy breakfast for you two at the entrance of the alleyway." Speaking of the entrance of the alleyway, Yi Hua recalled what happened yesterday. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji, who were in Yi Hua's embrace, immediately opened their beautiful eyes. Donghuang Baiji said tenderly, "Hubby, I will go and make breakfast for you. And the two of us will make breakfast together. You go and sleep first." After finished speaking, the two women got up and went to prepare breakfast. Meanwhile, Yi Hua lay on the bed for a while, then put on his clothes, went downstairs and walked out of Leisure Bar. Chapter 616. I almost can't recognize Yi Hua anymore. Donghuang Baiji mumbled. In Donghuang Baiji's heart, Yi Hua's style of doing things had always been iron-blooded, to the point where he wouldn't even give any face to his subordinates, let alone an auntie who was only selling Chinese crepes. Qingya said lightly, "Perhaps it's because we still don't know enough." In actuality, Qingye had known Yi Hua for a slightly longer time than Donghuang Baizhi. In Qingye's heart, Yi Hua was an extremely cold and indifferent man, and it was to the point that Qingye even had a kind of feeling that Yi Hua didn't like people. However, every time Qingye followed Yi Hua to the alleyway to buy breakfast, she would be able to feel that at that moment, Yi Hua would loosen up a bit. Perhaps Yi Hua had treated this auntie as a relative, and only a relative would accept the other party's reprimand. Yi Hua, who walked out of leisure bar, looked towards the entrance of the alleyway, and his gaze immediately became serious. A familiar stall and even that familiar back view. Yi Hua walked over with large strides. It was unknown what his mood was right now, but in any case, it was the kind that was very complicated. However, when he walked closer, he discovered that he had actually seen wrongly. This was indeed an auntie, but she was no longer the auntie from before. However, the cart was exactly the same. "Hey handsome, do you want one?" The woman selling pancakes turned her head and asked with a smile. Yi Hua's face sank, and soon after, he shook his head. "No need." With the change of people, the popularity of the fruit pancake was also taken away. The woman smiled and said nothing. After a short while, Yi Hua asked, "What about the person who sold the medicine here earlier?" The woman turned around and smiled. "Oh, you mean Su Qin? She sold this tool to me. I heard she even sold her house. She seems to have returned to her hometown." Su Qin. So this aunt's name is Su Qin. After so many years, I only found out today that this name is very nice to hear. In the future, don't set up a stall at the entrance of this alley. Yi Hua shouted out coldly. The woman immediately wrinkled her brows, and when she came into contact with Yi Hua's bone-piercingly cold gaze, she immediately got a fright. Muttering that he was sick, she hurriedly pushed the cart and left. Yi Hua took out a stick of cigarette and looked at the familiar position. It was as if he could hear an auntie saying beside his ear, "Young man, you have to pay for the extra egg." After finishing smoking the cigarette, Yi Hua extinguished the cigarette. It seemed like he had also extinguished the past that was hard to come by. At the moment when Yi Hua turned around, Yi Hua was still that supreme overlord. Those who complied would still have a sliver of hope for survival. Rebel. He could only go to hell to repent. Yi Hua returned to the leisure bar, and Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi came out with congee with pork and century egg. "It's still very hot." Qingye placed the breakfast in front of her husband. Yi Hua laughed lightly, then picked up the spoon and lightly shook it for a bit, then took a small bite. It was very comfortable. It turned out that his wife's cooking also tasted like this. After enjoying his wife's breakfast, Yi Hua returned back to Voidless Realm together with his wife. I feel that the taste of Leisure Bar has changed a bit. Without the Chinese crepes from the morning, Leisure Bar seems to be incomplete. As for what happened next, it was very simple. They just had to slowly wait for the matter to ferment, and the next time they would be greeted with utter pain and despair. I never joke around. It must be the deepest despair. 1 week's time passed by very quickly, and just like what Yi Hua had expected, the incident of killing 300,000 people had become more and more influential. The banner of eradicating evildoers had even been raised, and demonstrations had appeared all over the place. Voidless Realm had become the most searched term on the internet, and various foreign powers had also started investigating this mysterious Eastern organization. To think that they would actually be so cruel and ruthless. It was a pity that Voidless Realm was located in a desert, and the danger of that place was not something that ordinary people could deal with. Even the exact location of Voidless Realm was not something that could be obtained by ordinary people. Qing Qindi liked this kind of effect a lot. The bigger the commotion, the better. Those old monsters shouldn't be able to sit and do nothing. After all, Voidless Realm is a good thing. Small world. This is a big treasure. Qing Qindi took out his Nokia from his pocket and dialed a number with a smile on his face. When the call was connected, Qing Qindi laughed. "Brother Sin, it's me, Qing Qindi. Let's meet?" "All right." Qing Qindi continued to call. "Brother Chu, it's me, Qing Qindi. Let's meet?" "When?" Chuing asked faintly. "How about Tuesday?" Qing Qindi laughed. "No, I have to go to work." "You can't possibly work overnight, right? Let's do it on Tuesday night." Qing Qindi laughed. Chuing remained silent for a while, then said, "All right." Qing Qindi continued to make the third call. "Big Sister Jiu, it's me, Tian Qindi. Let's meet up on Tuesday night, how about it?" From the tone of the call, Qing Qindi seemed to be a bit low profile. A ghost-like voice rang out from the phone. "Tuesday night, I have an appointment with someone to play mahjong." "Big Sister Jiu, we can play mahjong anytime about Voidless Realm." Jiu Ling remained silent for a while, then said faintly, "All right, I'll cancel this game then." "I'm really sorry." Qing Tiandi laughed. Jiuling responded and hung up the phone. Qing Tiandi continued playing mahjong. Brother Xiaotian, are you still cooking? Qing Tiandi heard the sound of the stove and the sound of the spatula ringing out from the phone. Sure, Xiaotian said impatiently, if you have something to fart, then say it. Let's meet up on Tuesday night. I'm not free. Don't worry, I won't disturb your brother Xiaotian cooking. However, right at this moment, the manager's scolding voice rang out from the phone, and even Qing Tiandi heard it. Sure, Xiaotian. How long do you take to cook? Do you not want to work anymore? Coming right away, coming right away. Sure, Xiaotian said gravely, let's talk about it when the time comes. Hearing the busy tone that came out from the phone, Qing Tiandi shook his head helplessly. These old monsters really can't sit still, I have to invite them one by one, don't they know how to do it themselves? One is more and more crafty than the other, it is only I, Qing Tiandi, who is too naive. Right now, Li Hun, who had reincarnated, cut a man's neck, and a young lady was so frightened that she hid at the corner of the wall. There isn't a single good thing in men. Do you know? You have to rely on yourself. Li Hun shouted lightly towards the shivering young lady. Shaking off the blood on the knife, Li Hun walked out of the house. These few days I have already killed a lot of men. Killing is especially satisfying. In any case, as long as I see other people being sweet and affectionate, I will know that that man definitely doesn't have good intentions. Kill. Seeing other people quarreling, scumbag. Kill. In any case, I am going to kill all the bad men in the world. Men are not good things. Other than lying to others, there is nothing else. Li Hun's current state of mind was the typical one that couldn't bear to see other people doing well. Why can other people be more fortunate than me? Just for the sake of satisfying myself by killing everyone. But right now, killing ordinary people is no longer enough to satisfy Li Hun's needs. Even though I am so strong, I have still been deceived by men. If I want to kill, I must kill strong men. That way I can save more women. Beauty, it is very dangerous for you to stand at the side of the road. Dou Fusher looked at Li Hun, who was in a daze, and shouted. This woman is really beautiful. Chapter 617. Li Hun took a glance at Dou Fusher, then turned around and left. Why didn't he kill Dou Fusher? That was because Dou Fusher did not have a girlfriend by his side. If there was a girl by his side, Li Hun would definitely kill all the heartless men in the world. Dou Fusher should be glad that he does not have a girlfriend, right? However, after seeing Li Hun leaving, Dou Fusher did not have the intention to strike up a conversation with her. Dou Fusher's current action had undoubtedly saved his life once again. If he had gone to strike up a conversation with her just now, before he could even shout for help, he would have been killed by Li Hun. Dou Fusher had unintentionally saved his life twice. Dou Fusher, who turned around and left, muttered, I did a divination today and my life is in danger. Seems like I have to be careful and not get hit by a flower pot. I have to be careful when crossing the road and not get hit by an electric bike. I am Dou Fusher, a gold raider, how can I die? Hee hee. In the blink of an eye, it was already Tuesday night. Qing Tian appeared on a street that was filled with midnight snacks, casually found a table outside and sat down, then began ordering. Although the world had changed, eating skewers for midnight snacks had never changed. Enjoying delicious food was a kind of enjoyment. This streaky pork is not bad, give me another 20 RMB. Qing Tian shouted. He felt that it was not bad. Sure, give me another case of beer. Okay, coming right up. While eating the skewers, Qing Tian leisurely waited. Suddenly, a fat man sat down. This man's fat was not fat, he was muscular and sturdy. He was the chef Shi Xiaotian. Damn. Why did you call me here? Shi Xiaotian took out a bottle of beer and directly bit open the bottle cap with his teeth, then raised his head and started drinking. Then he grabbed the skewers and started eating, causing the surrounding people to sigh, but they did not dare to do anything. This Shi Xiaotian's physique was truly a bit scary. Brother Xiaotian, don't be anxious, there are still a few people. Qing Tian smiled. Shi Xiaotian snorted and continued eating. Not long later, a woman who wore a white big round hat and a noble white evening dress leisurely walked over, causing the surrounding men to be dumbstruck, and some even whistled. The woman didn't seem to mind. She even winked at the drunk men teasingly. Sister Nine, you're here. Have a seat. Qing Tiandi was also very polite and personally set up a chair for Jiuling. Jiuling chuckled. Heaven and earth, you're not stingy today. He made such a big move recently, how can he be stingy? Shi Xiaotian picked his teeth with a bamboo stick. I'm just acting as your vanguard. Just as he finished speaking, a bicycle stopped beside him. Chu Ying arranged her tools and sat down with a smile. She didn't say anything. As soon as Chu Ying sat down, a child carrying a school bag also sat down. Brother Sin. Qing Tian called out with a smile. Children are sins. Although he looked like a child, he was actually very old. Du Zue put his bag aside and picked up the beef tendon to eat. Qing Tiandi, why did you call us here? Qing Tiandi didn't beat around the bush. This little brother has already paved the path for you guys. Voidless realm is just around the corner. Du Zue ate until the corner of his mouth was filled with grease. He didn't have the demeanor of an expert at all as he said vaguely, you did so much just to force us to come out, right? Of course not, it's been a long time since we got together. Besides, everyone knows about the benefits of Voidless Realm. How could the four of them not know about it? A small world, if it grows up, it will become a big world and they will be the master of that big world. How exciting would that be? However, all experts wanted face, and without a good excuse, they didn't want to do something that would tarnish their reputation. And Qing Tiandi was going to pave the path for them, to openly fight their way into Voidless Realm. This was also the reason why Chu Ying asked Jiu Yi to do that, because that small world was truly too tempting. Jiu Ling said, Qing Tiandi, what are you thinking of to trick us again? Shi Xiaotian sneered, you're full of evil tricks, I won't believe you. Chu Ying's silence was Kim's philosophy. Big brother, big sister, why don't you all believe in me, Qing Tiandi? If we manage to take down Voidless Realm, wouldn't it be good for us to be the masters of Voidless Realm? Qing Tiandi maintained a smile on his face. Just like what Shi Xiaotian said, he was full of evil tricks. Qing Tiandi, do you think that we don't know what you are planning? Du Zue took out a napkin and wiped his mouth, then casually threw the napkin on the ground. Seeing this action, Qing Tiandi wrinkled his brows, but he didn't say anything. Jiu Ling took out a pair of sunglasses from her bag. If I had known earlier, I would have gone to play mahjong. It's boring, I'll be leaving first. After finished speaking, Jiu Ling stood up and left. Shi Xiaotian drank another bottle of beer, then said, I'm going home to study the recipes. Du Zue carried his school bag and said lightly, I still have to go to school tomorrow. In an instant, 3 people left and his first love was still sitting there. Qing Tiandi squeezed out a smile and said, Brother Chu, how about we work together? I still have to wake up early for work tomorrow, bye-bye. Chu Ying stood up and left on her bicycle. Looking at Chu Ying's back view that was getting further and further away, the corner of Qing Tiandi's mouth twitched slightly. His smiling face slowly darkened, and a trace of viciousness flashed past his eyes. After a long while, Qing Tiandi also stood up and left. Boss, you still haven't paid the bill? The boss hurriedly chased after Qing Tiandi and wanted to stop him. But before his hand could even touch Qing Tiandi's clothes, the boss was sent flying, and it was unknown whether the boss was dead or alive. Even the shop assistant didn't dare to chase after Qing Tiandi rashly. This man is a bit scary. However, if one were to observe carefully, a trace of an arc appeared on the corner of Qing Tiandi's mouth. High up in the night sky, the 4 people who just left were standing in the sky. This Qing Tiandi is still the same as before. Du Zue sneered. Jiu Ling laughed tenderly, doesn't that mean that he still wants to scam us? Shi Xiaotian pinched his neck and said eerily, I really want to wring his neck off. His plot didn't succeed, so he vented his anger on the boss. He really hasn't changed. Chu Ying chuckled. In fact, the 5 of them had cooperated before, but Qing Tiandi was trying to scam them, so the 4 of them didn't want to have anything to do with him. Sometimes they even couldn't help but fight with him. However, they came from the same place and could be considered fellow countrymen. Killing one of them would mean one less. This time we'll do it ourselves. Du Zue grinned. Qing Tiandi had done so much to pave the way for them, so there was no need for him to intervene. Chapter 6:18. When do we make our move? Chu Ying asked in a low voice. Right now, everything was ready and they could make their move at any time. Du Zue looked towards the direction of Voidless Realm, then said, there is no time like the present. Since we have already come out, let's make our move tonight. Shi Xiaotian and Jiu Ling, who were at the side, nodded. Since they had already come out, they might as well finish what they had to do. Did they still have to choose an auspicious day? They didn't believe that. Meanwhile, in the middle of the desert outside of Voidless Realm, there was currently a bonfire, and there were a few people sitting around the bonfire. From time to time, those people would let out laughter. Wife, grill a chicken wing for me. Right now, Yihong was rather manly. He was actually able to order Zishan, who was beside him, to grill a chicken wing for him. Zishan smiled gently and said, Alright, I'll grill some chicken wings for you. LV Liang smiled at the side and didn't say anything. This is all because Zishan is giving me face. Once I go back, this little brother of mine will become a coward. Death Mage was sitting beside him. Sun Fong was not present today. After eating his wife's grilled chicken wings, Yi Hong sighed softly. Uncle Wei, why did you ask us to take turns to guard this place? Could it be that someone else is coming? Zishan took out a tissue and passed it to her husband. Yi Hong smiled as he took the tissue and wiped his lips. Zishan said, Uncle Wei might have also received his honor's order to prevent anyone from launching a sneak attack on us. Then, if someone is really going to launch a sneak attack on us, then his honor's prophecy is truly incredible. LV Liang sighed with emotion, and within his mind, his honor's tall and sturdy figure appeared, and a blazing heat could be seen emitting out from his gaze. Death Mage let out a cold laugh. His honor is a supreme overlord, how can we compare with his intelligence? There's nothing wrong with what Master Spellcaster said. Yi Hong said with a grin. The reason why his honor is able to lead such a powerful team is all because of his own capabilities. Zishan laughed, all of you are just a bunch of bootlickers. For example, I am his honor's brainless fan. His honor is so handsome. Facing his wife's limitless worship of his honor, Yi Hong asked curiously, then is his honor more handsome or am I your husband more handsome? Zishan poked onto her husband's forehead unhappily, aren't you talking nonsense? It's definitely because his honor is handsome. Yi Hong felt as though a sharp sword had stabbed into her chest. It was so painful. LV Liang laughed out loud, what you are doing is called masochism. I would never ask this kind of question, and yet, you are actually competing with his honor in terms of handsomeness. Little brother, you sure have guts. Yi Hong also discovered that she had misspoken. I actually became so arrogant that I want to compare my looks with his honor. I'm ashamed. He silently prayed for his honor to spare his life. LV Liang took a look at the time, it was almost midnight, it's time to change shifts. That's right, it has been a long time since I last fought. If someone really comes, then hurry up and come. Zishan's hands were clearly a bit itchy. It was no longer interesting for her to abuse her husband at home every single day. Yi Hong said in a low voice, honey, haven't you hit me enough at night? Zishan said casually, if you are able to make my stomach become big, do you think that I would need to hit you? This isn't my fault. Yi Hong said embarrassedly. Speaking of which, it has already been a few months, but Zishan is still not pregnant yet. Could it be that it is that difficult for a deity to get pregnant? His honor's wives are already pregnant with their second child, and I didn't even get to see a single fart. Speaking of children, Zishan became angry. If it's not your fault, then whose fault is it? You aren't even willing to work overtime. I'm just worried about you. What worried about me? From what I see, you just don't want to have children. When did I? Look, you aren't even irritated anymore. The husband and wife immediately started scolding each other. Zishan was the main attacker, while Yi Hong was the one who explained. Death Mage and LV Liang turned around and shook their heads helplessly. Death Mage thought to himself, fortunately I am a skeleton and I can't shoot anything at all. Meanwhile, LV Liang thought to himself, the blood race sisters didn't even mention about having children at all. If they are pregnant, then just raise them. If they are not pregnant, then it doesn't matter either. Right at this moment, 4 figures appeared at the side. To be more precise, there were only 3 figures and one of them was a husky. Sister-in-law, greetings? The 4 people stood up and greeted respectfully. The 3 people who came were Lai Gu's 3 wives, Yi Wenxia by Xiaozhen, and of course there was also that Yun Lang who stuck out his tongue. Lai Gu's identity in the team belonged to his honor's direct subordinate, and his status was outstanding. Thus, his wives' status naturally rose as well. However, Yi Wenxia and Bai Xiaozhen were still very amiable. They did not become arrogant because of their status, because they understood that if it wasn't for Lai Gu, it would be impossible for them to be standing here and serve the Supreme Overlord. This time they took the initiative to participate in the mission, not for anything else, but because they wanted to bring honor to their husband and let his honor praise them. As a wife, this was something that was necessary. That's why these 3 women are all smart women. If not, how would they be able to obtain Lai Gu's affection? Lai Gu was very picky. In the past, he would often change his female dragons, and now it has already been a year and it was still the same 3. From the looks of it, these 3 women had already charmed Lai Gu. You all quickly go back and rest, leave this place to us. He laughed lightly. In actuality, things like staying up all night can be handed over to other people, it's just that they took the initiative to request it. Sister-in-law, thank you for your hard work. LV Liang cupped her hands and said with a smile. After all, after acknowledging Lai Gu as his big brother, his hairstyle was split in the middle, and he looked very handsome. However, just as everyone was about to change shifts, an enormous spiritual pressure appeared in the sky. The 7 people and the husky looked up at the sky, and excitement could be seen in their eyes. They really came. His honor is so powerful. He was even able to guess this. The 4 people who came were naturally Du Zue, Jiuling, Chuing, and Shi Xiaotian. The 4 people stared at the bonfire, and of course the people beside the bonfire also had puzzled gazes. Why would these people appear here? Shi Xiaotian asked curiously. However, he wasn't afraid, he was simply curious. Jiuling laughed lightly. There's even a dog, how interesting. There's also a skeleton, humph. Du Zue said coldly. Chuing asked puzzledly, is that the black gown? So what if it's the black gown? They are nothing more than a group of women. Du Zue said indifferently. He seemed very calm and didn't panic in the slightest. The 4 people in the sky were very calm and collected. The 7 people below were no longer calm and collected. Sister-in-law, look, it isn't time to change shifts yet, how about you all sit down and rest? Zishan said hurriedly. It wasn't easy for people to come and cause trouble for us, so how about we let them go? Not only are we able to fight, we will also be able to obtain his honor's praise. This is simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. With a light smile on her face, when Xia said unhurriedly, Zishan, since you called us sister-in-law, you should listen to sister-in-law and go back and rest properly. You can just leave the matters here to sister-in-law. So incisive, even Yun Lang, who was at the side, nodded his head vigorously. No matter what, I came out from Voidless, and before I even had the chance to show off my might, I was completely oppressed by Big Sister. Now that the opportunity is here, how can I let it go? Chapter 619. LV Liang wouldn't let go of such a rare opportunity. She took out her mobile phone and pointed at the time. Sister-in-law, look, it's 11:59. It's not 12 yet. Bai Xiaozhen was still the same as before. She was a bit shy and said softly, LV Liang, jump. It jumped? LV Liang didn't react for a moment. She then looked at the time. It turned out that it had jumped to 12 o'clock. F***ck, how could this be? Yi Hong had to fight for her wife. Sister-in-law, look, these people all came before 12 o'clock. Let us do it. Sisters-in-law, go back and accompany Big Brother. I'll keep watch tonight. Zishan felt very comfortable when she heard these words. Her husband knows that he is thinking for me. She flicked her hair that was messed up by the wind and said softly, Yi Hong, Zishan, didn't you two want to have a child recently? Hurry up and go back and give birth to your child. You can leave this matter to sister-in-law. Seems like this doesn't make sense. The 7 people immediately started a nervous debate. Yun Lang really wanted to say, I want to fight for it too. You all can't treat me like a dog, I also have human rights. The 4 people in the sky naturally heard their conversation, and their expressions turned ugly. They were actually arguing about such a thing. If they had the guts, they should attack together. Truly a bunch of people who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Shi Xiaotian twisted his thick neck and immediately released a wave of evil energy. It actually took on a physical form, and the yellow sand was disintegrated by this evil energy. It was indeed very powerful. The 7 people arguing below became even more excited. Wow, so awesome, so cool. I will do it. I will do it. Ignorance is human nature. I like these people even though there's no sense of accomplishment in killing them. Jiu Ling said indifferently, her beautiful eyes filled with killing intent. The child, Du Zue, revealed a mocking smile. What a fool. On the ground, Yun Lang barked wildly at the 7 debating people. Woof, 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 Imperial translation. They are scolding us, and they are even scolding us for being stupid. Yi Hong suddenly thought of an idea and suggested, Sister-in-law, why don't we each take a step back? The other party has 4 people and we'll each send 2 people. How about that? Upon hearing Yi Hong's suggestion, everyone felt that it was feasible. He still nodded on behalf of the class, which meant that he agreed. Yi Hong's idea was to let his wife vent her anger so that she wouldn't take it out on him every day. Big brother, help me please. Yi Hong begged LV Shu to give this opportunity to Zishan. If not, she would definitely not have a good time. Of course, LV Liang knew his little brother's pain. He patted Yi Hong's shoulder and said, Little brother, I know your pain. When Yi Hong heard this, she felt wronged. Zishan is simply becoming more and more domineering. Zishan is simply riding on me every single day. Big brother, you are my real big brother. Yihong was very touched. Big brother was the best. Sai, you have to work harder as well and satisfy Zishan's request. After that, her attention will be placed on the child. Yihong nodded. She also wanted to, but she just couldn't get pregnant. Did she have to go to an andrology hospital? He did not know which one was better. Death Mage, who was at the side, condensed a death scythe in his hand, and under the illumination of the moonlight, a cold glint flashed across the death scythe. Needless to say, Death Mage and Zishan would definitely be the ones to fight. Zishan excitedly hugged onto her husband and gave him a French kiss. After that, she walked out of the room with a satisfied look on her face. LV Lu said with a smile, "Look, as long as you satisfy a woman, she will be completely obedient to you." Yihong felt that there was nothing wrong with Zishan's decision. Zishan was already very happy just now. I have to continue making Zishan happy in the future. In another class, the three women were discussing with each other, and Yunlang was directly ignored. Yunlang squatted at the side and let out a low groan of grievance. "I, Yunlang, also want my human rights. I also want to fight. You all can't do this. I want to report." As the big sister, she gave the two younger sisters the opportunity out of courtesy. "Wuxia, Xiaojin, the two of you go and have fun. Don't lose his honor's face." And we understand. Death Mage, Zishan, Wuxia, and Bai Xiaojin could be seen walking out of the room. Du Zui, Jiuling, Chuing, and Shi Xiaotian descended from the void as well. Looking at the one man and three women in front of them, Death Mage's appearance was rather intimidating. However, the other three women looked extremely weak, as if they would be sent flying with a single slap. Du Zui pointed at Death Mage and hooked his finger, then lightly leaped onto the ground. Death Mage versus Du Zui. Shi Xiaotian clenched his fists, letting out cracking sounds as he shouted towards Bai Xiaojin, "Beauty, come over and play with me." Bai Xiaojin pursed her lips, then went to the side to fight with Shi Xiaotian. Bai Xiaojin versus Shi Xiaotian. An evil smile appeared on the corner of Jiuling's mouth as she pointed at Wuxia. "Let's play with you then." "Alright." Wuxia's expression was still as cool as ever, and her voice was very cold as well. Wuxia versus Jiuling. Chuing was definitely going to fight against Zishan. Zishan versus Chuing. "Wife, do your best." Yihong placed both of his hands on the side of his mouth and shouted loudly. Zishan turned around and blew a kiss to her husband, then walked to the side to fight with Chuing. For battles were about to begin. First battle. Death Mage versus Du Zui. The two stood on the pitch-black ground of yellow sand, and spiritual pressure that could make people feel fear was being emitted from their bodies. Even the mutated animals in the surroundings didn't dare to get close to them. From this, it could be seen that this Du Zui was a very relaxed person. Without strength, how could he possibly come and fight against Voidless Realm experts? Furthermore, there were only 4 of them. However, Death Mage wasn't a benevolent person either, and the scythe of death that was in his hand was emitting a terrifying aura. "Lowly outsider, today I Du Zui shall help you." For Du Zui, who was carrying a school bag, to say such a thing was indeed a bit strange. Death Mage, GGG. Imperial translation, "You little trash." Du Zui naturally didn't understand what Death Mage meant. Du Zui sneered, then immediately emitted out his aura, causing a gale to howl, and the spiritual pressure to increase explosively. The black robe that was on Death Mage's body fluttered madly, and his pair of bony feet sunk deep into the yellow sand. Du Zui stretched out his small palm and placed his right hand on his left wrist, then shouted out explosively, "I'll send you to hell." Boom. A white light could be seen shooting out from Du Zui's palm, which immediately illuminated the dark world. The huge spiritual pressure split the yellow sand into 2. Death Mage stared fixedly at the incoming white light. The scythe of death that was in Du Zui's hand was immediately stabbed into the yellow sand, and a huge black barrier appeared in front of Death Mage. Suddenly, the white light collided with the black barrier, causing a loud sound to ring out. Yihong and the others couldn't help but turn their heads around and take a look at the black barrier. The battle has already started so quickly. Look at them, they are still chatting with each other. The black barrier was able to withstand the attack without any difficulty. This caused Du Zui's brows to wrinkle. Then Du Zui transformed into a meteor, and his small fist immediately smashed onto the black barrier. Crack. Cracks appeared on the black barrier like it was made of glass. Frightening spirit chi immediately spread out, and a wave of chi immediately spread out. This Du Zui was actually able to destroy Death Mage's black barrier with a single punch. From this, it could be seen that Du Zui's strength was rather terrifying. Chapter 620. Humph! You dare to use such insignificant skills in front of me, Du Zue? Du Zue shouted out in disdain. However, right after he finished speaking, a silver light descended from the sky. Du Zue's eyes narrowed and a long and thick rod appeared in his hands. Death's scythe and the rod collided. Bang! A loud sound reverberated throughout the world, and a ring of light spread out in all directions which actually caused a sandstorm. Du Zue raised the thick rod in his hands and laughed lightly. You have a bit of strength, but it is not enough. GGG, Imperial Translation. Where did you get your confidence from? Death Mage's bone finger immediately emitted an electric light, which was then transferred to his scythe. It could be seen with the naked eye that Du Zue's rod was conducting electricity. ZZ, a terrifying electric current flashed across Du Zue's body, and one could even see Du Zue's skeleton. Du Zue's entire body was emitting smoke and was trembling violently. Looking at it from afar, Du Zue looked a bit like a primary school student in a bar. Du Zue was dancing and had an afro. A green smoke was emitted from the top of Du Zue's head, and there was also a smell of roasted fur. The smell was very uncomfortable. However, Du Zue didn't seem to be affected much. Instead, his expression became even more ferocious, and he tightly held onto the rod in his hands. You actually injured my body. Du Zue muttered to himself. It has been a long time since I received such an injury, and I was actually injured by a puny outsider. Overlord boom. Du Zue could be seen raising the rod in his hands high, and the rod immediately emitted a terrifying pressure, causing the surrounding air to instantly boil and distort. The original metal rod also revealed its true form, and it was completely golden. As expected of a nouveau riche. Du Zue's gaze locked onto Death Mage, and the golden rod in his hands descended. However, in the instant that the rod descended, the rod actually became bigger and it was really thick and long. Before the rod even landed on the ground, the spiritual pressure had already split the yellow sand apart. Death Mage silently looked at the rod that was descending towards him. Of course, he wouldn't use his strength to fight against the rod. Last time when he fought against Xiao Yi, he learned a bloody lesson. Fortunately, my master was merciful and revived me. I won't make this kind of mistake twice. Alright, this will be the last time. Forget it, the opponent's strength was more than a level higher than Xiao Yi's. The golden club smashed down towards Death Mage along with blazing flames, and a ray of red light flashed past Death Mage's empty eyes. GGG, Royal Translation. Absolute Domain. Suddenly, a strange formation covered the yellow sand, making everyone gasp in amazement. Damn, the Master Mage is so strong. LV Liang exclaimed. Yi Hong also muttered, yeah, I feel like no one is a match for it under this absolute domain. Everyone at the side still tacitly agreed. Could be seen that Death Mage was indeed very powerful. The husky that was squatting on the side licked its feet in boredom. I want human rights. In the middle of the stage, a gigantic golden rod descended from the sky. Death Mage did not dodge the attack and just stood there, he did not even bother to defend himself. Die, alien! Du Zue shouted angrily. The child's voice suddenly became old and carried a cold wind with it. Bang! The golden cudgel had indeed smashed down, but it was shattered into pieces. The cudgel turned into specks of starlight in front of Du Zue's astonished eyes, and rose into the night sky. What is going on? Du Zue looked at the skeleton not far away in disbelief. He had clearly hit it. How could this be? Du Zue looked at his own hands with a confused expression. This was the first time such a strange thing had happened. GGG, Imperial Translation. Little trash, kneel down before this Master Mage. Boom. Du Zue felt a tremendous spiritual pressure coming towards him, and his expression immediately turned sinister, and his legs began bending. Ha! Du Zue shouted out angrily, and an even greater amount of spiritual energy emerged from his body to resist against the spiritual pressure. The skin on Du Zue's face began falling off bit by bit, and his delicate skin also began degenerating, revealing wrinkles. In just a few moments, Du Zue had turned into a short and small old man. Du Zue's current appearance almost made Death Mage vomit. This is 2F** King disgusting. There are only a few strands of hair on Du Zue's head, his back is hunched, and his teeth are all incomplete. Coupled with that sinister face of his, Death Mage looks extremely disgusting. If it was possible to vomit, Death Mage would definitely vomit without any hesitation. I will kill you. I will kill you, alien. I will use your bones to annihilate evil. Du Zue roared towards the sky, and the layer of black clouds in the sky immediately dispersed, revealing a sky full of stars. Kill? Du Zue shouted out angrily. Cold stars could be seen flickering in the starry sky, and Death Mage raised his head and looked at the stars. From the looks of it, Du Zue still doesn't know what kind of situation he is in. The cold stars in the sky could be seen descending rapidly, and those were countless blades that brought along a scorching aura as they descended. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Blades that were formed by spiritual energy landed on the ground of yellow sand, and immediately beautiful patterns were formed. Everyone's eyes couldn't help but brighten up. Looking at this scene, LV Liang couldn't help but say, "This move is pretty good for proposing." Yi Hong, who was at the side, silently nodded her head. Yi Hong still smiled and said, "Do you men really know how to be so romantic?" From the looks of it, what Yi Hong said revealed Lai Gu's true nature. Right now, Du Zue was gasping for breath as he slightly raised his head and looked at Death Mage. Die. Countless blades that were formed from spiritual energy instantly aimed at Death Mage, and the blades that were formed from spiritual energy attacked towards Death Mage while emitting the aura of death. A shocking might shook the world and everyone couldn't help but gasp. Death Mage let out a strange laughter once again. GGG, Imperial Translation, let me show you what is called absolute comprehension. Death Mage slowly raised his hand. Damned alien, I won't accept your surrender. Du Zue shouted coldly. This damned alien dared to show off in front of him. Death Mage ignored Death Mage and placed his thumb and middle finger together. This scene made LV Liang and Yi Hong's jaws drop slightly. Holy shit. Even mages have learned his honor's unique way to act cool. Snap my fingers. LV Liang was dumbstruck. In actuality, I also want to act cool like this. This is too interesting. Yi Hong also had a look of envy on her face. She didn't have Death Mage's style and only knew how to use his fists to solve problems. Du Zue narrowed his eyes and looked puzzled. What was this alien trying to do? Death Mage lightly snapped his fingers, and the countless spiritual chi swords instantly stopped moving. This. The corner of Du Zue's mouth twitched and he even rubbed his eyes. How is this possible? Was it an illusion? However, this was not the end. All the spiritual energy blades turned around at this moment and pointed at sin expiation. GGG, Royal Translation. In absolute comprehension. I'm God. However, Du Zue could not understand Death Mage's language at all. He was stunned by the scene in front of him. Boom, boom, boom. Countless spiritual chi swords attacked towards Du Zue. Immediately, a dazzling white light burst out from the spiritual chi swords and soared straight into the sky. Chapter 621. If there were no other factors, it would be quite beautiful. Gradually, the darkness shrouded the earth again. Du Zue was lying on the ground, gasping for breath. There were many bloody wounds on his body, but he was not dead. From this, it could be seen how strong Death Mage was. Death Mage was also a bit absent-minded. He actually didn't die. Interesting. He threw out a black shackle and bound Du Zue, waiting to be dealt with. Damned outsiders. Why are you so strong? Du Zue was still unwilling to accept this reality. How could his ultimate move be used against him? This was unheard of. Death Mage took out his phone and typed a few words before showing it to Du Zue. It's not that I'm too strong, it's that you're too weak. Du Zue couldn't help but vomit out a mouthful of blood. I didn't expect that there would be such a terrifying existence in this world. If I had known that it would be like this, suddenly, Du Zue seemed to think of something. Heaven and earth pillar, I'm going to kill you. Only now did Du Zue realize that he had fallen into heaven and earth's trap. Bastard. It seemed that he already knew about the situation here and deliberately said that tonight. He wanted them to come here and court death. At this time, Qing Tiandi was eating instant noodles and watching If You Are the One when he sneezed. Yi Zichen muttered, "It's already spring and it's still so cold, I have to wear more clothes." Shi Xiaotian versus by Xiaojin. Shi Xiaotian, who was standing on the sand dune, revealed a playful smile. Such a delicate woman was just like a weak animal. He could easily strangle her to death. Kneel down and kowtow to Brother Xiaotian, and I'll spare your life. Shi Xiaotian twisted his thick arms. With a height of 2 meters coupled with his physique, he looked like a small mountain in front of Bai Xiaojin. Because she was on the night shift, Bai Xiaojin wore a long down jacket. But now she took off the down jacket and wore sportswear inside. Her arrogant figure was immediately exposed to the air. This caused Shi Xiaotian to be slightly stunned, and then he said with a smile, "What? Trying to seduce my brother Xiaotian? It's useless. I have no interest in you." Bai Xiaojun slowly raised her arm, pointed her finger at Shi Xiaotian, and then crooked her finger. This was blatant teasing. Shi Xiaotian sneered. He had never seen such an audacious woman before. He roared in anger. His body immediately emitted a golden light, and thick blue veins popped out of his skin. His muscles also began to swell. Looking at him now, Shi Xiaotian looked like he was made of stone. Every muscle on his body was so explosive, as if they were made of carbon fiber. His huge fists seemed like they could shatter anything in the world. Although such a muscular man was huge, he would definitely be welcomed by young ladies, especially those who liked muscular men. I really can't bear to shatter your body. But who told you to anger me? Shi Xiaotian roared. His right fist sparkled with a golden radiance, bringing with it a boiling hot aura as he punched towards the petite Bai Xiaojun. Bai Xiaojun was only 168 centimeters tall, but in front of Shi Xiaotian she was too small. His fist was as big as Bai Xiaojun's face. The violent astral energy blew Bai Xiaojun's beautiful hair into a mess. Her beautiful eyes were filled with the huge fist. Bai Xiaojun slowly stretched out her left arm. This action caused Shi Xiaotian to laugh wildly. You overestimate yourself. Go to hell. Be instantly killed by my strength. Ah. Boom. Under the fist, the yellow sand instantly flew into the air and spread outwards. A huge shockwave covered the sky and covered the earth. This was a confrontation of strength, there was no need to haggle over it. But Bai Xiaojun was developed by Lai Gu, her strength was also able to destroy the world, causing people to be speechless. Just like the current Shi Xiaotian, that crazed smile on his face had become stiff. Bai Xiaojun could be seen stretching out her slender index finger and tapping on the huge fist. If the camera zoomed in, one would discover that it was actually her fingernail that tapped on the huge fist. Shi Xiaotian muttered. He was completely unable to react to what was happening. The corner of Bai Xiaojun's mouth curled up slightly. My strength is not bad. To actually look down on me, brother Xiaotian? You have to pay the price for overestimating yourself. A golden light emerged from Shi Xiaotian's skin, and he was like a god that had descended to the mortal world. His stiff face became incomparably malevolent, and he clenched his fists tightly and raised them up high. You're going to pay a painful price. Go to hell. Shi Xiaotian's fists flourished with golden light, and that scorching aura reverberated in the air, causing people to be filled with fear. From Shi Xiaotian's point of view, if he were to punch down with his fists, he would definitely be able to smash this woman into a meat patty. However, how is a man who raised his fists up high going to protect the treasures on his body? Not only is Bai Xiaojun's strength great, her speed is also outstanding. Following Bai Xiaojun's light shout, her slender and beautiful legs swept onto Shi Xiaotian's crotch. Shi Xiaotian, who was preparing to smash down, had his eyeballs about to pop out. I never expected that this woman would actually play such a dirty trick. I can be considered to have gone through hundreds of battles. All of us have the rules of the underworld. Kicking someone's crotch is simply a child's play. Shi Xiaotian, who had an extraordinary aura just a moment ago, immediately held onto his crotch as if he was a cooked shrimp. You slut, you actually plotted against me. Shi Xiaotian couldn't help but shout out. Shameless to the extreme. You will definitely receive retribution. Bai Xiaojun said in a low voice, this is a move to guard against wolves. F***K. I'm fighting with you. It's not like I want to sully you. What the hell are you guarding against wolves for? The pain in his crotch caused Shi Xiaotian to sweat profusely. Oh, is that so? I'm sorry, it was just a subconscious action. Bai Xiaojun's words almost caused Shi Xiaotian to vomit blood from anger. Before Shi Xiaotian could react, Bai Xiaojun's small fist directly smashed onto Shi Xiaotian's abdomen. The golden light on Shi Xiaotian's abdomen could be seen shattering into pieces. Shi Xiaotian wasn't sent flying. It wasn't that Bai Xiaojun's strength wasn't enough, rather Shi Xiaotian didn't want Shi Xiaotian to be sent flying. Sneak attack. Shi Xiaotian held onto his crotch with his left hand and held onto his abdomen with his right hand, then directly laid onto the pile of sand. These two blows nearly took Shi Xiaotian's life. After all, Bai Xiaojun's fists and kicks weren't for show, and it was already a miracle that Shi Xiaotian was still able to speak. I thought that we were going to start fighting. Shi Xiaotian, if you don't follow the rules of the underworld, I'm not going to fight with you anymore, stinky woman. Shameless. Before Shi Xiaotian could even see clearly, his face was slapped by Bai Xiaojun, and his entire body was sent flying. Bai Xiaojun's face was ice cold. In this world, other than his honor and my husband, no one else can even think of scolding me. Shi Xiaotian, who was sent flying, laid on the pile of sand, and as if he had been slapped silly, he blankly stared at the starry sky. Shi Xiaotian's appearance was a bit similar to Feng Tian, who was slapped to the point that he became autistic. Chapter 622. Isn't it good for me to be a chef and research on recipes, and I actually came to this damned voidless realm. I must have been possessed by greed and was actually deceived by God raising heaven and earth. Thinking up to here, Shi Xiaotian seemed to have realized something. I fell for God raising heaven and earth's trick again. Bastard. I'll die a horrible death. Bai Xiaozhen slowly walked to Shi Xiaotian's side, then lowered her head and looked at Shi Xiaotian. What are you looking at? I'm going to, Before Shi Xiaotian finished speaking, Bai Xiaozhen punched toward Shi Xiaotian's abdomen once again. A hole was punched out from the entire yellow sand. How terrifying. However, Shi Xiaotian is still not dead. He is truly resistant to beatings, no wonder he had the courage to come to Voidless Realm. Bai Xiaozhen grabbed onto Shi Xiaotian's neck and began walking back. Shi Xiaotian was no longer the Xiaotian Ji from just now, he was more like a dead Ji. On the other side, Wuxia versus Jiuling. The two women were the kind of women that were one in a million. Even in this kind of weather, Wuxia's body was only wearing a black leather shirt and pants, but the tight-fitting clothes perfectly accentuated her curvaceous figure. She looked very cold and sexy. Jiuling, who was standing opposite of Wuxia, looked very arrogant. She was wearing a white evening gown and a white round hat, looking just like a noble lady. "Beauty, are you interested in following me?" Jiuling said with a light smile, the corner of her mouth slightly raised. "She is also a rare beauty." Wuxia said coldly, "Not interested." "Sigh, what a pity, I really can't bear to lay my hands on a beauty like you." "That is if you can." Wuxia sneered. "I haven't fought for a long time, my entire body is itching." "Beauty, your tone isn't small, I won't be polite then." Jiuling's expression gradually turned cold, and two daggers condensed in her hands. With just a look, one could tell that the daggers were not ordinary goods. "I won't be polite either." Wuxia's cold look was even more serious than Zishan. Even when facing Lai Gu, Wuxia still had a straight face and rarely smiled. Perhaps it was because of this that Lai Gu liked Wuxia a lot. He liked that cold look of hers, it felt very comfortable and pleasurable. Jiuling shouted, and her beautiful figure suddenly disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he appeared behind Wuxia and stabbed his dagger towards her neck. However, Jiuling's eyes darkened. She immediately sheathed her saber and even abruptly pulled away. He looked at Wuxia in disbelief. Many things had happened in that instant. When Jiuling appeared behind Wuxia, her heart was filled with joy. She would be able to kill this cold and elegant woman with a single strike. However, just as she was about to stab into her delicate neck, Jiuling suddenly noticed that Wuxia was looking at her, and a sense of danger swept through her body. She didn't think too much about it and immediately distanced herself. "You." Beads of sweat appeared on Jiuling's forehead. Just from that moment, Jiuling felt the gap between them. This woman could actually discover him. It could be seen that her speed was also very fast and she might even surpass him. Wuxia slowly turned around and looked at Jiuling. "Are you distancing yourself because you are afraid?" "I'm afraid of you." "What a joke. Are you really not afraid?" When Wuxia said this, she had already appeared behind Jiuling and was even right next to her ear. Jiuling's expression changed drastically. Even she didn't notice this ghostly speed. What was going on? How could this woman's speed be faster than mine? The dagger in Jiuling's hand drew a beautiful arc in the air. The white round hat on her head was also sent flying by the force and fell onto the yellow sand. Wuxia grabbed Jiuling's wrist and said softly, "I really can't bear to kill a woman like you." Jiuling felt the force from her wrist and couldn't move at all. She immediately attacked with her left hand, but Wuxia seemed to know what was going to happen and reached out to grab Jiuling's wrist. Jiuling's pretty face was filled with panic as her hands were held tightly by Wuxia. "Ah!" Jiuling shouted and a terrifying spiritual energy burst out from her body. It was as if she wanted to use this method to break free from Wuxia's restraint. But was Wuxia that weak? She wasn't afraid of Jiuling's spiritual pressure at all. "Who are you?" Jiuling asked in a low voice. The pain in her wrist caused her to let go of the dagger and fall onto the yellow sand. Wuxia snorted coldly, "Who am I?" "The person who serves the Supreme Sovereign." After saying that, a terrifying aura burst out from Wuxia's body. It was as if the entire air was trembling. Jiuling was forced to spit out blood by this terrifying aura. Her beautiful face immediately withered and revealed her original appearance. Looking at Jiuling's appearance, Wuxia said indifferently, "So you're old and can't even compare to me." Hearing this, Jiuling spat out another mouthful of blood. Her opponent was so powerful that she couldn't defend against it. She didn't even get to use many of her abilities before she was pinned down. But even if she did, it would be useless. This woman was too powerful. Just this aura alone was enough to make her spit out blood. How could such a person exist? What was wrong with this planet? Wuxia didn't waste any more time and punched Jiuling's abdomen. This punch immediately scattered Jiuling's spiritual energy. In layman's terms, this punch had crippled Jiuling. At the same time, Wuxia let go of Jiuling, blood flowed from the corner of Jiuling's mouth. Her withered face was filled with fear. She pointed at Wuxia and shouted, "You woman! How vicious!" "Vicious? You should think that I'm kind and didn't want your life," Wuxia said coldly. There was not a trace of color in her eyes. After pausing for a moment, Wuxia said again, "Of course I don't know if you'll be able to live or not, because you'll have to wait for my punishment later." Wait for my punishment? Jiuling thought about the Overlord Paramount that Wuxia mentioned just now. These people are actually the subordinates of the Overlord Paramount. What kind of existence is the Overlord Paramount? Why didn't heaven and earth tell me about this? Or did heaven and earth know about this and did it on purpose? Jiuling finally realized that she was tricked by heaven and earth again and became his cannon fodder. This is what vicious means. Wuxia grabbed Jiuling's neck and walked back. "You're still too weak, you didn't allow me to use my full strength." This woman is actually so pretentious. Jiuling's lungs were about to explode from anger, but she was helpless and could only let Wuxia grab her. "Damn you, heaven and earth. Even if I die, I'll wait for you at the bridge of helplessness." On the other side, it was Zishan versus Chuing. Zishan rotated her neck and twisted her waist. She even did some stretching exercises and said with a light smile, "I'm just doing a warm-up exercise. You can also do it, but be careful not to get cramps." You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.